All right. So I would like to call to order the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education.
Recording in progress.
I think it's going to be one of those nights. Can you mute?
Oh, with a bang.
Oh, perfect. It's Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. We are meeting in a hybrid format with some of us here at Casco Bay High School and some online via Zoom. Do we have Vice Chair Bondo online yet? Not quite yet, but she will be joining us. Board members Yusuf and Biliu will not be in attendance tonight. Superintendent Ali, will you call the roll?
I would love to. Well, member Biliu, we know Vice Chair Bondo is coming. Okay. Member Bryden. Here. Member Figdor. Here. Member Grant.
Here.
Member Opperman.
Here.
Member Russell-Better. Here. Member Yusuf. Member Ellis.
Here.
Member Hemond.
Here.
Member McLaughlin. Student Rep Santiago and Chair Lentz.
Here. Thank you. Now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
And
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand. The Wolastoqiyik or Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy or People of the Dawnland. We are honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and as a district, we are committed to making past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and in our classrooms. We are now going to move to public comment. As a reminder about public comment, it's open to anything we are not voting on tonight. The board may not respond to any comments, and please refrain from responding in the audience. No complaints or allegations will be allowed in public concerning any staff member or any person connected with the school district. To give public comment, please come forward to the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Please begin by introducing yourself with your name and address. We'll alternate batches from Zoom and in person. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll keep the time, and when you've reached 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I will raise a yellow folder indicating you have 30 seconds remaining. At 3 minutes, I will raise a red folder signifying the end of your time. If you get to the end of your allotted time and would like to request more time, you may do so. So now, if you would like to give public comment, please come forward or raise your Zoom hand. All right, so I'm going to close public comment. I see no one coming forward in the room or online. And I'm going to move into my remarks and just want to welcome Vice Chair Bondo, who's here now online. So first, I wanted to thank the City of Portland for showing up to vote. On June 13th, we passed the school budget with a 76% affirmative vote, which is awesome. And there was an increased number of voters that turned out this election in comparison to last year, which I think is a really awesome sign. So thank you, everyone who voted and who supported our budget. I also just wanted to thank all of those who came to the Pride Parade last Saturday. There were so many of us, both on the school bus in the parade and walking along the school bus. And after the parade, which we were all very wet, I ran into a PPS parent and they stopped me to thank me because their child it was so impactful for their child to see their whole district walking in the parade. So I know it was very rainy and not ideal, but it really was important that we were all there. So thank you very much. I also a lot of thanks tonight, which is great. Yesterday, I was lucky enough to attend the State of Black Maine Symposium, which was the first convening of this symposium, and it was absolutely wonderful. And one of the coolest things about it was so many people from our district were featured, both in several panels about education. So people that were in our high schools years and years ago talking about their experience then, and our current students talking about their experiences now. And it was just incredible to listen to their stories and also to hear the racism that they experienced both then and now, and just what a powerful reminder it is about the importance of our work. And speaking of the importance of our work, June 30th, I believe, is the day that people can pull papers to run for school board. So we are going to have openings in an at-large seat, a District 4 seat, and a District 5 seat. So if you are interested in running for school board, please feel free to reach out to any of us to ask questions, get more information on the process. We welcome all to run and participate in the process. And then my last thanks is to Malia Nally. As this is Malia's last board meeting on this side of things. And so we wanted to really create some space to celebrate all of her work. Paul Gorski, who is somebody we really hold up around here, says that we should become a threat to inequity. And when I think about you, Malia, you are a threat to inequity in all the ways that you have set this district up to be a threat to inequity, from the Portland Promise to your work around curriculum to creating systems and operations for years that now has created a foundation that we can move forward. And I think one of the things that has just stood out to me since I've come onto the board is how much this district is at the front of the pack across the nation. And that is largely in part because of you and your leadership and your boldness and your fearlessness. And I'm so thankful. So I would love to open it up to any other board members who wanted to say something. And then also we've got some other folks, namely the one next to you, who might want to say a couple of things as well. So if any board member would like to speak, now is the time. Yeah, board member Victor.
So Malia, it is very hard to see you go, but you are leaving the work in good hands, and we are so committed to seeing through all that you have put in place. And when we're not, I expect to hear from you. And we can make course corrections. But I just wanted to echo a little bit of what Sarah said, and just appreciating how much of a thought leader you've been in transforming our district to center equity. And I think at one point you said to me, you know, it's not just Javier who's been leading this work. And I said, yes, I know. Your fingerprints are on all of the, from the Portland Promise to our visions for our curriculum. So many aspects of the work that it takes to actually transform the district. Not just to say we're committed to equity, but actually to move to a district that is committed through and through to equity. And so I'm just, I admire you deeply. I'm so grateful for your work. And I do need to, in particular, express my gratitude for your stepping up in this transition and serving in the role of co-superintendent, which is, I know, something you weren't anticipating and didn't want to do necessarily, but that your dedication to the district and to the work that we're doing compelled you to do. So thank you. And I really hope to hear from you, including when it's with, frustration or anger or ideas, whatever it is. Please be in touch, and look forward to continuing the work with you, but as a parent.
Board Member Bryden.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this short because it's redundant, but thank you so much for all of your hard work. I I have tremendous respect for you, and I am so looking forward to you being in those seats, and, getting up and giving public comment or sending us emails about the ways that we can continue to do wonderful work. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, Malia, I absolutely want to echo some of what was already said, particularly your unwavering commitment to remain laser focused on our equity work. Absolutely. That's something I've seen from you every single day. One piece I wanted to just share my observation about Malia's skill is just your incredible skill in synthesizing, particularly during a period of, absolute ongoing survival mode during COVID, but being able to, in our meetings, synthesize these complex, nuanced, educational information in a manner which we as a board, who are mostly not educators, right, can really understand and engage with. And I think has really allowed us to operationalize the work and prioritize funding, and then really to be able to prioritize the budget to live our values that, the Portland Promise has laid out. So I've just always been really struck by your strength in doing that. And I've appreciated that and learning from you. So thank you.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And yes, Malia, just want to say thank you, just to echo what my colleagues just mentioned. But the thing that I really remember the first time when I joined the board, I think 5 years ago, and we have accomplished something on the pre-K in the curriculum. That's why I really find out that I had a really good ally on the values that I was really believing in our change and equity, and also for marginalized students. So you've been on the top of that. And I've been watching you through the years, and anytime you've been coming back to me to get me, pushing me to get my voice heard and listening to my comments. And sometimes, and I know you and I, and I keep remember that we have to send you flowers because, maybe I pushed a little bit the button, but the thing is, you knew exactly what I was standing for, and I really respect you for everything you have accomplished in the front and behind the scene. So I will miss you deeply, and I know you're going to be just around, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for everything you have accomplished. Good luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malia, for your hard work. We've worked together for a very, very short time, but I admire your steadfast commitment to acting upon what you believe in. I think that is incredibly important in moving any program forward. And thank you for that. And I wish you well. And I know we will see you, as your children come through the system. And that will be a very good thing. Thank you.
Let's let Jill go first.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you from a student perspective. You have not only helped lead and motivate this district, but you have also been a really amazing role model for me and so many other students and aspiring educators and aspiring leaders. You are driven, you are passionate, you are funny, you are courageous, you are all of the great things that we need in female leaders nowadays. And I'm so grateful to have gotten to know you and to hopefully get to know you further in the Casco community and the Portland community.
Thank you, Chair. I think the bit of original thinking I can bring to these proceedings comes from what I've been doing over the last 6 months. I'm going to approach the fourth wall here and try not to break through it, but I have my appreciation for you and your work has grown exponentially now that I'm involved with the education systems around Maine. And I just want to tell you and everyone else here how lucky we are to have someone at the top of our organizational chart who has not lost sight of the mission of what we're here to do. And there are other folks who hold those positions around Maine who I think have. And I think it's unfortunate for those districts and for those kids. But we don't have that here. We are very lucky that you've maintained that commitment to the work that we're all here for. So I want to thank you for that, and I wish you the best.
All right, you're up.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair Lenz. It's an honor to be able to recognize and appreciate you publicly in this space. So for all your service, so you're the first person I connected with here in PPS before I made my transition. And it's hard to imagine doing this work without you. I know I can speak for a lot of folks in the audience out there. So we've navigated pandemics, staffing issues, bus detail, and now superintendency together. And I hope that our ongoing work can honor your legacy of courage, honesty, and compassion that you lead with. So I know I'm a better leader for having been your partner these past few years. So thank you. And we have a few things. We have not just the verbal flowers, we have real flowers and other mementos for a moment. So if you want to come forward here.
I think you have to go up there.
Yeah.
We're gonna be official.
Oh my God.
I know.
Sorry to everybody who came for something. Thanks, guys. Oh, so sweet.
I intended to stop for flowers, but I was late, so I'm glad perhaps I didn't.
These are from you too, Emily. Right.
It's not flowers. Thanks, everybody.
No problem. Okay, so moving on, we're going to move to the report of the superintendents.
Oh, yeah, let's start with the recognition. Thank you, everybody. That was very thoughtful and humbling and embarrassing. So gratefully, I get to turn the attention to somebody else and recognizing other people, which I'm much more comfortable with. So high school math coach and incoming Casco Bay High School assistant principal Priya Natarajan recently brought to our attention some incredible math achievements among our high school students. And we're excited to acknowledge two of those students this evening. Is Asa out there? Okay, and is it Asa? Thank you. Okay, so first, and you can come up, Asa. We want to start by commending Deering High School 10th grader Asa Tusing for his exceptional math skills. Asa is involved with several clubs at Deering, including the DHS Math Club, and has received top accolades at various competitions throughout the region. For example, Asa placed second at the Maine State Math Meet earlier this year. He also achieved first place in the Pie Cone South Math League, securing the highest overall score after competing in 5 regional math meets. As a member of the elite Maine State math team, Asa also competed at the National American Regions Mathematics League contest on June 2 and June 3, a challenging national competition. Asa is not only a great student, but we understand he is also a wonderful friend to many and role model at Deering. So congratulations to Asa. Playing with that pieces as well.
Oh, well, you've already said it, but this is the official certificate for the first place in the Southern Maine region that you completed in. And he's only halfway through high school.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, a picture of the two of you. Nice. Thank you. Okay, and we also want to shout out school board member and Portland High junior, Caden Heman, for being an outstanding student overall and incredibly talented at math. He just completed his junior year taking AP Calculus BC, the highest math class offered by the district. For the regular math meet season, Caden's consistently high scores helped the PHS math team win second place in their division. At the Maine State Math Meet held in April, Caden had the 14th highest score of all juniors in the entire state. He was also selected for the elite Maine State math team that competed in the American Regions Mathematics League contest on June 2 and 2nd, which again is that challenging national competition. So we wanted to call you out also, Caden, and you get a certificate as well. So all right, over to you, Co.
Okay. Congratulations to both Asa and Caden for your incredible accomplishments. So good evening, board members, community members, and staff. We want to start our report tonight by acknowledging the holiday yesterday, Juneteenth. The holiday commemorates the end of slavery in the United States, and it marks the day at the end of the Civil War when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people were freed. President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed enslaved people in rebellious states in 1863. However, in many parts of the country, the proclamation was not implemented until the Army enforced it. Juneteenth is considered the longest-running African-American holiday, but it only became a federal holiday when President Biden signed it into law in 2021. We hope that everyone took time to reflect on our continued work to create an anti-racist community and country. Now, we are excited to be on the eve of summer for all our students, staff, and families. We wish everyone a safe, restful summer break and look forward to their return in the fall. We want to again wish our graduates of the class of 2023 the best of luck in their future endeavors. Graduation ceremonies were held for Portland High, Deering, and Casco Bay on June 7th and 8th, and there were wonderful celebrations of each school and their students. Student speakers from each school highlighted the experiences they've had over the past 4 years that has them moving into their future prepared and empowered. We look forward to celebrating the final graduation of the year, the Portland Adult Ed graduation, this Thursday, June 2nd at 6 p.m. at Merrill Auditorium. In other updates, we wanted to share about our progress on the implementation of our new payroll system, ADP, for the next school year. We had a deeper conversation with the Finance Committee about the status of the project at their recent meeting on June 12th, so please check out that meeting for more information. We are currently on track to transition to the new payroll system, starting with the first paycheck of October on October 7th. The team has been working hard with initial data conversions, and the ADP team is currently working on our system configuration. The next few phases will involve significant testing and validation to ensure it is set up correctly and delivers the benefits we anticipate. We will then be rolling out our training plan to ensure all managers and employees are familiar with the systems before it goes live in October. We also wanted to provide an update around our planning to ensure we are providing a safe school environment for all students and staff. We know our school communities, particularly Portland High and Lincoln, were dealing with various safety concerns in the past week. We have been organizing a comprehensive framework to address these concerns, and this will be a focus as we head into the coming year. Our framework starts with the foundation of our safe and equitable schools work, where we continue to grow school cultures where students feel a sense of belonging and that are anchored in relationships and effective systems. We are also growing our capacity to respond to incidents when they arise to ensure student and staff safety. Our incident response training includes 3 distinct but interconnected frameworks: CPI, CSTAG, and ALICE. While all three have components of direct response to incidents, the focus of these trainings also includes preventative measures. Crisis Prevention Institute, or CPI, is the organization that provides the model for restraint and seclusion in PPS. CPI provides key educators with the skills to safely recognize and respond to students who are in crisis. The training complies with the state legislation and is evidence-based in terms of nonviolent crisis intervention training. Comprehensive School Threat Assessment Guidelines, or CSTAG, is the process for behavioral threat assessment that is a critical component to violence prevention and school safety. CSTAG training is being implemented in PPS to support those who work with students when they communicate that they may pose a risk to themselves or others. ALICE is a civilian active shooter response training delivered with a trauma-informed approach in an age and ability accessible format. ALICE strategies are supported by peer-reviewed research and have been found to reduce anxiety and build confidence in individuals. Active shooter response training will be available for all schools to ensure systematic protocol and response. School teams have already been participating in CPI and CSTAG training, and we will be rolling out our ALICE training this summer and at the start of the school year. We appreciate the ask to amend the calendar by a day this fall that we'll be voting on later this evening to make sure that we can provide this training to all staff and be prepared to ensure safety for all students and staff moving forward. I want to turn it over to Malia for the last part of our report.
Thanks, Aaron. So we wanted to give a big shout out to everyone who came out to ride or march with the PPS bus float in the Pride Parade this Saturday that I know Chair Lentz was speaking about. We're grateful to the teachers, students, and board members, current and past, who came out to show their pride and to celebrate the LGBTQ+ members of our school community. It was a soggy day, but that didn't stop people from bringing their bright light to shine. We strive to create schools that are safe and inclusive, where all people with all identities feel seen, valued, and affirmed for being exactly who they are. Events like Pride give us a chance to celebrate that support and make it visible to our community. We recognize that members of the LGBTQ+ community have been under attack in this country, as exemplified by the more than 400 pieces of anti-trans legislation proposed in the United States. All of this legislation, even when it doesn't happen in our state, has a negative and harmful impact on trans people and their families. The Portland Public Schools proudly affirms and stands with our LGBTQ+ students and staff. Thanks again to everyone who came out and had a good time. As the year comes to a close, we're getting some opportunities to take a step back to reflect and plan with school leaders and educators. A few recent and upcoming highlights include the kickoff to the Educator Advisory Committee, which met to discuss priorities and purpose for the coming year. The group identified several priorities for discussion and advising, including the upcoming budget challenges, school reconfiguration, high school design, our coaching model, the ESOL credentialing expectation, among other topics. We're excited to have this group established to pass off to Dr. Scallon and the team to lean on for insight and feedback in the coming years. Coming up, we're preparing for a day-long high school design retreat on June 27th with a group that's been meeting throughout the year and who you will hear more from this evening. In addition, the Alternatives to Suspension work group will retreat for a day and a half next week as well to finish the vision for future processes and a more detailed plan for how to create safe learning environments while keeping students connected to the community, including a plan for what professional development is needed. The group will also have time to collaborate with school teams to flesh out specific plans for next school year. One big reflection we had this year was the disconnect between our district expectations for restorative practices, which were entirely focused on foundation building, specifically working on relationships in Tier 1 systems like common and consistent expectations, and what people understood we were expecting as a district. We came to realize that many people assumed we were trying to implement a full restorative system before we have these critical foundations in place to support the deep work. As we look to next year, we're working to build greater shared understanding of our future goals and our next year's steps. One area we've come to realize needs greater clarity and dialogue is how we hold each other and students accountable while adhering to our values and desire for a more restorative culture in the future. We're hopeful about continuing to dig in on this critical work, and we're excited to have the work group asserting recommendations and concrete plans. Finally, as has been noted, we want to acknowledge that this is our last board meeting as co-interim superintendents and share our gratitude for our team who's been flexible, supportive, and unwavering in their dedication to our students and our core mission. We stepped into this interim arrangement with trepidation, but with a deep commitment to our community, admin team, educators, and students. We were asked to help stabilize our payroll operations, pass the budget, and begin to build back trust in our schools. While we're not yet to perfect with our payroll systems, we're confident that we're on a path to being able to pay our employees accurately and consistently. And we believe that the new system that Aaron described earlier will position us for much stronger operational excellence. We want to acknowledge Terry Young, Barb Stoddard, the HR and finance teams, and also Javier Botana, who worked tirelessly to get us back on track before he left. We're also thrilled to celebrate that the budget passed, as again, Chair Lentz mentioned, unanimously by the City Council and then won 76% approval by the voters of Portland. We're grateful to our team who put together a coherent, priority-driven, responsive budget, to our board for their commitment to advancing the Portland Promise goals while being respectful of the taxpayers and strategic about the future budget forecast. And of course, to the taxpayers of Portland who continue to support strong schools as a cornerstone of strong community. As for our goal to begin to restore trust within our community, we believe that we are making strides and we still have a ways to go. Our culture took a big hit this year when we experienced the payroll crisis amidst extreme staffing challenges and on the heels of an incredibly taxing few years of the pandemic. In the past, we've shared Brené Brown's Anatomy of Trust as a helpful framework for unpacking and talking concretely about trust building. She uses an acronym, BRAVING, and the R stands for reliability. As a district, we were simply not reliable earlier this year when we failed to pay everyone accurately and on time, and not surprisingly, this broke trust. We've since tried hard to be transparent and to say what we mean and mean what we say, even when it's not all good news or about the ideas that everyone agrees with. The key here is to keep doing that over and over as we build back trust in the system and in each other. As a district, we've talked about the concept of collective efficacy for several years. This is the concept that was studied by John Hattie, whose meta-analysis has proven that collective efficacy is about the most significant predictor of student achievement. In a nutshell, collective efficacy is about the adult culture. It's about a group of educators sharing a common vision or goal and working together to realize it with a true and deep sense of shared commitment and support for each other. The good news is that adult culture is within our locus of control and has the potential to propel us forward for our students and to make us all feel good about the work that we do. We're excited about welcoming Dr. Scallon into our community as we believe he shares our understanding and deep commitment to working on growing our trust and ultimately a sense of collective efficacy within our community and for our students. And that's a wrap.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And now we're going to move to the foundation quarterly report. Yeah, come on up, Andy.
Superintendent Townsend, you're going to do the slides just to confirm? Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all for having me. It has been since January, so maybe a bit more than a quarter since I did the last one of these. So you can go to the next slide. So I have a few things and I'll try to go through them quickly because we've had a busy year. We did just recently grant 15 summer innovation planning grants to staff. So that's our second round of teacher grants in the year that we reinstituted last year. So this is our second year kind of post-pandemic for teams of mostly teachers, but other staff who work with students to collaborate, work to improve, plan new structures and systems for the fall. So we'll be paying for work this summer done by approximately 55 teachers representing 13 schools. We granted a total of $23,880. And I just wanted to point out that we received 22 applications requesting $52,000. So there's a high need. There's a lot of folks who are eager to improve their practice or try new things. I've also spoken briefly, I believe, with this group about the remarkable $250,000 donation that we received for music and the arts. We've met now twice with all of the district's art, music, and theater teachers, which has been extraordinary in and of itself. Many of them said that they had never in their whole careers here been all together as an arts team. So they were really excited just by being in the room together and having a chance to talk. And they quite easily came to the agreement that what they wanted to do was invest $35,000 of what was granted into an interest-bearing account that the foundation would hold for kind of a long-term repair, maintenance, emergency fund for music and the arts. And that the music department would decide how to spend $90,000, the arts department the same, and $20,000 for drama. And collectively agreed that they didn't want to use that for consumables or day-to-day expenses, even though they always wish there was more, but that they wanted to invest in infrastructure that would serve many students over many years. So the art department is working with Portland Pottery to go to every school and check on the status, in particularly the electrical capacity and safety of the kilns, and will replace, repair, or maintain so that every school has an actively working kiln for next year, which is exciting. And then depending how much they have left, they're going to revisit. The music department is also going to invest in a high quality digital piano for each school, which is really exciting, and decided that they would budget $2,500 for each music classroom teacher to get their kind of classroom musical instrument collection up to par. So they're really thrilled, but they did actually specifically ask me to share in this meeting that they made very big lists of their needs, and that this money will not meet all of those needs. And that they're hoping, now that they've come together, that next year they will come to you as a board to share some of those facilities and kind of daily budget needs that now that they've had a chance to talk about it are excited about advocating for. So that's what's going on with music and the arts. Then the next piece is a continued follow-up from an idea that originally came from Councilmember Grant, probably 8 months ago, which was to survey the school boards around how much money each PTO raises in a year typically and what they spend those funds for. So this is the graph that shows from the schools that we had data for how much money they raised in the last year. And you don't need to read the details to see that there's a range of, some schools make in the range of $30,000 in a year from PTO efforts. And I say PTO, I mean school-based parent groups. I know they have different names. And then, but then there are some schools that make something like $1,000, $2,000, or $3,000. So there's a large discrepancy in what the schools make. We had, next slide, please. So we had a great gathering of parent group leaders on May 26th. What was really great is that almost 30 people came to that gathering, which is really exciting. And what they talked about, first, they looked at that data and talked about what they saw and what it might mean. And we actually found many nuances about why schools might bring in different amounts of money. And the first most obvious reason being that some schools have very different socioeconomic profiles of their families that go to the school. But we also recognize that there are a lot of other factors that could be playing into why some parent groups bring in more money than others, based on just the skills, the tenure, the seniority of parent group leadership, the role of the administration, the consistency of, some, like Reiki has had a fall road race that they've been having for years and years and years, and other schools don't have similar traditions and so on. But then the real interesting conversation came to be, if we as parents want to also fulfill the Portland promise and think about equity, what we're doing is we, as parent groups, we're actually exacerbating that right now. So a school community that already has a pretty highly resourced group of students in terms of their socioeconomic status is bringing in even more money for more resources for that school. And the parents who were present felt like they wanted to address that. So the takeaways they came to were, we would love it if we didn't fundraise. We would love to just build community, but we kind of get that that may not make sense. We should strengthen coordination of outreach to businesses because we're all asking the same businesses for the same kind of things. So we'll work on that. But the interesting commitment I wanted to bring to this group is the groups in the fall, and I will kind of send some reminders and suggestions on how to structure this, want to bring to their school-based group 2 ideas. One, kind of a push that every school in the district, and again, we're not saying we should do this. This is an idea to discuss, that every group should consider a direct appeal to parents, and that direct appeal should include a possibility of, I'd like to give to Casco Bay or I'd like to give to a pool that will be equitably redistributed to the parent groups at every school in the district, so that families could choose to give all of their $100 just to Casco Bay. They could give 50 to Casco Bay and 50 to that pool, or all of it to the pool. So then the idea would be that the pool of funds would be sent back out at some point, quarterly or I don't know what, to the parent groups, and then they could use those funds that are kind of like collectively gathered. So that was one idea. And the second idea was an idea we got from Portland, Oregon. And their idea is that any school that raises $10,000, that 50% or 2/3 of what's raised over that base rate goes into that pool for equitable redistribution. So those are the ideas that are going to be considered. I suspect that it will take several months for every school group to have this conversation. The board of the foundation would have it. Then we'd need to reconvene leaders. So this is a slow moving train for next year, but they're interesting ideas to consider. That's it on that. All right, I'm whipping through the topics, but the next topic is around the launch of our alumni network. We officially kicked this off by sending an email to 35,000 email addresses of folks we believed were alumni of Portland High, Casco Bay, or Deering. We now have 22,000, at the time I wrote this, 22,173 confirmed emails of alumni. And we invited those folks to take a survey about what they'd be interested in seeing from the alumni network. And I just want to add that school board member Ellis is going to be interning with the foundation this summer to work on this network with us. So very exciting. So that's exciting, and we'll report back. The next piece I think you've heard already, but just a reminder to the group that our fiscal sponsorship relationship with Portland Empowered ends next week, which is bittersweet for us, but they're moving on. And then I'll just keep going because I have so many slides tonight. I also wanted to share that we hosted Spring for Teachers, and many of you were there. It was on May 11th, and I did want to publicly shout out our sponsors who are there, who are the community organizations and businesses who sponsored this event. And I threw in a couple more photos just for fun, like Superintendent Townsend and some other folks you'll recognize in this one. And then one more slide. Oh, no, that's it. And then the final piece, I think, is just to show, as we always do at our quarterly presentations, the major donations that have come in since the last time we were here. So this first page is business donations since January, other than Spring for Teacher sponsorships, which was on the other page. So that's a total of $82,245 from businesses. Then this is page 1 of 2 of foundation grants since I last presented. And I did want to briefly draw your attention to the 3 grants on this page from the family that were grants to the Families in Crisis program, because I know the board has checked in repeatedly and been concerned along with us about the funding for that program. And our board at the foundation has we've collectively decided that we're going to commit to $5,000 a month for Families in Crisis unless we see a real increase in fundraising. So that is a decrease than what we've been spending this year, but we felt like it would be more prudent to set a monthly budget than kind of whip through the $40,000 we just raised and then be out of funds again in the summer. And that was agreed upon by Melissa McStay, who represents the social workers for this program, and Maureen Clancy, who represents the staff at Multilingual. And unfortunately, that $5,000 is typically spoken for in the first couple of days of each month. So the need is just vast, but we're doing a little piece of it. Next slide. Oh, that's the remaining foundation grants that didn't fit on the first page. And then individual donations, too many to list. We've received 189 individual donations totaling $346,903, but that large number does include the single $250,000 donation, as well as a donation for the Barbara Anderson scholarships at Portland High School for $40,000, and a $10,000 individual donation to Families in Crisis. And all of that brings me to, we're 2 weeks shy of the end of our fiscal year. So it looks like our revenue will be approximately $1.6 million this year, which is slightly lower than last year. But the good news is it's higher than the amount we brought in last year without Portland Empowered's revenue. So as we're planning ahead to not have Portland Empowered in our books, that feels kind of like a piece of good news for us. And finally, our board at our annual meeting voted to approve hiring a new staff member for the foundation. So we're going to try to bring on a full-time development and alumni coordinator in the fall, which should expand our capacity. And I think that's it. Questions?
Does anyone have questions? Mickey, thank you for the extra set of eyes. Yeah, Vice Chair Bondo, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy, for the presentation, and really appreciate the work that the foundation is doing. And I know you just spoke a little bit about the family in crisis. So I know I just heard about the 5,000, the monthly, and the need. So with the increase of the new arrival and newcomers, do you have maybe on the top of your head how many families so far we were able to serve? And also, beside of the housing issues, what's the most needed? Then, the foundation has, come out from the multilingual, what the family been looking for beside of the any housing situation, because that's a huge one. But beside of it, what's the most, then you may know.
Yeah,
Then
I can't give you specific numbers, but I do know that of the we do track demographics of beneficiaries of the program, and it's in the range of 85 to 90% of recipients of families in crisis funding. What we track is parents' birth country of origin, so it's not the United States. What I know anecdotally is they're not typically newcomers who are receiving money from families in crisis. They're kind of been here a little longer than that and are in apartments, but are struggling to avoid eviction and paying rent and kind of paying utilities. So I can't categorize that with a number, but that is my understanding of who's receiving benefits. And it does, so it's rent, which is what spends the money quickest. We have a cap of $1,000 per family per school year. But it also goes to utilities, medical costs that can't be reimbursed. And it's very often that turns out to be eyeglasses, that there's a certain number of folks who can get free glasses from a variety of local stores that provide glasses, but that often that's not covered in folks' insurance. So typically the medical costs we pay are eyeglasses, and then transportation sometimes. And then we have a category that's other critical supplies. But that's a really small percentage. I would say that most of it is utilities or rent.
Okay. So, excuse me, just to go with a sub question, I just want to understand the process. So that means families requests come from the multilingual. So it's like an application done, and then the application submits to the foundation, and then you just release the fund. So that's the way it goes.
Not exactly. So we at the foundation don't do any of the screening of who is selected. That's done by Maureen and her team at Multilingual and Melissa and her team of social workers. And so they have a Google form that any social worker or any family community specialist can submit a request for a family that kind of lays out like what the need is, what the expense is, has a scanned copy of like the bill or the invoice or whatever it is that needs to be paid. And then there's a set of criteria, which of those criteria they meet. And it used to be, until quite recently, that if you met those criteria and you hadn't received $1,000, if you met any of those criteria and you hadn't received $1,000 in the year, we would make the payment. But because now we have been running out of funds, that Maureen and Melissa are looking at, well, whose situation is, at the beginning of each month is most critical. And they've really been looking at how can we help someone avoid eviction if we can, is what it's come to just in the last couple of months. We're hoping to get back to a place that it's, if you meet any of this criteria, you can receive assistance. But the need has just gotten so enormous. And a big part of that is that, from what I gather, a lot of the other rental relief programs that used to exist have ended. So whereas, the Opportunity Alliance and Catholic Charities and other folks were kind of in this game before, along with families in crisis, they're not. So I think that's a big piece of it.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Anything else?
Any other questions from the board?
Thanks, all.
I just wanted to say, Andy, I just always appreciate your work, but my day job is in philanthropy. And I just wanted to highlight that so many of the practices that you're using are really industry standard best practices because they are redistributing power within the community and letting the community to decide where money goes. And I think that that's an incredibly powerful model. And I think it is going to build a stronger community overall. So I just appreciate the work and the time that you're putting into implementing those practices. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Oh, and if people wanted to donate to the Families in Crisis Fund, how would they do that?
Excellent question. If you go to the foundation's website, foundationforpps.org, there's a bunch of ways to get there, but the easiest one is to click on the donate button. And then there's a drop down list of places you can donate to, like a general donation, but you could donate to STEM or music and the arts, but then you could choose Families in Crisis. Or you can always email me and I can give you a direct link, or you could write a check. You could even put it in your will. There's lots of ways that you could donate. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Wonderful. But also just, I am feeling so much heaviness in that rental assistance is over. SNAP benefits have been cut dramatically. Our need is increasing while our resources are decreasing. And that is going to show up in our schools even more, and especially over the summer. So just, whenever I feel heaviness, I like to acknowledge it. It's very real, and I'm just supportive of everybody in this room that continues to work. So with that, I'm going to transition to the report of the secretary, which is the consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of June 6th, 2023. And if you'll remember, last meeting, we changed to a consent vote on the meeting minutes. So are there any corrections to the meeting minutes for June 6th, 2023? Let me just double check Zoom. Okay, I see none on Zoom. So if there are no corrections, the minutes are approved as published in board docs. Beautiful. And so now we're going to move on to the report of the committees. So I think we'll start with the curriculum and policy committee, and each committee is going to report on kind of what has happened this year and then looking forward to the next school year. Is there anything else you would add to that, superintendents? Okay, beautiful. So curriculum and policy, go ahead, Aura.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. So as the having the privilege of being the chair of the Policy and Curriculum Committee over the past year, I thought since we haven't done this for a while, might just back up for a minute and just introduce who the members of the committee have been this year. They've been myself, member Mickey Bondo, member Nylet Billiou, and member Jillian Opperman, and Chair Lentz and member Grant have also participated in the past year as well. And so just to give a little background about what the committee's role is, the Curriculum and Policy Committee regularly reviews the district's practices related to the development, implementation, and evaluation of curriculum policies, models of learning and educational instruction. And it also regularly reviews board policies, develops new policies as needed, and recommends them to the full board for approval. We also regularly review state actions to ensure that the district's current practices comply with state statutes, and we make recommendations to the Finance Committee and the full board about how resources can best be allocated across the district to ensure equitable access to curriculum resources in accordance with the district's vision. So I also just wanted to note that the co-superintendents are part of all of the work that we do and put an incredible amount of work into moving forward the policies that I'll mention that we've passed through this year. And also just want to acknowledge the numerous staff members throughout the district that have also put in many hours of work to develop these bodies of work. And particularly during the past year, continuing to be in a pandemic, they've gone above and beyond and spending their time coming and explaining the deep work that's been done throughout the district to our committee to then be able to bring forward to the full board. Also wanted to note that these policies are all in board docs, which you can find through the Portland Schools website. So these really are available for folks to read and understand deeper, because I'm just going to be doing a little touch on the work we've done, but please do know that you can read in detail further about these policies. So I think I'm just going to start to just kind of list some of the accomplishments of this past school year. And it really, there have been at least 10, I might have missed a couple, but at least 10 pieces of policy that we've moved through the board this year. So when I was thinking about this, I thought, oh my goodness, from everything that's gone on this year, that's a lot of work actually that has gone through. So I think this is really a good opportunity to pause and reflect and really acknowledge the deep work we have been able to move through this year. So I'll just highlight a few. We were able to pass JLF, which is a policy on reporting child abuse and neglect. And that really got clear and clarifying the role of staff in investigations. We moved forward JICH, which is the drug and alcohol policy, which got more clear about moving toward a more restorative approach to drug and alcohol use with students. We passed JIH, which is the questioning and search of students. We passed a workplace bullying policy. And also JFCK, which is a student cell phone use policy, which helped to better align phone use expectations across our middle schools. We passed IMB, which is the teaching of controversial subjects policy. And tonight, we hope to pass BEDH, which is a public participation in board meeting policy. So you'll hear more about that when that comes up on the agenda tonight. And then I just wanted to highlight a few, which there will be a number of these, but I wanted to highlight a few of the priorities coming for the next school year. One big one is the high school alignment work, which Pamela Otunu and staff will be digging into further this evening, but I'll just briefly state that the goal in this body of work is to limit the disparity in high school enrollment, create system-wide vision with a common theory of action, and ensure consistent program opportunities across the high schools, along with prioritizing 21st century learning environments. So that work is in progress, and we'll get an update about that this evening. Also, in the next year, we had a great presentation that Superintendent Nally gave to our committee on curriculum and deepening the implementation across our buildings of our ELA curricula. And some of the other priorities in the coming year will be continuing to build up science curriculum, development of literacy blocks, health curriculum, and some FTE considerations, including pre-K expansion, duly identified positions, and others. And I know I'm missing a lot, Superintendent Nally, but those were some of the highlights. And then a couple other really important pieces of work are the IJJ policy, which is the selection of educational materials, or otherwise could be called the library policy. And so we will be prioritizing moving that policy work to the full board, which really is strengthening PPS's commitment to free and equitable access to information, which will better align with our equity goals. And then lastly, just wanted to note the work group that's moving towards shared understanding, which Superintendent Nally mentioned a few minutes ago, understanding towards using restorative practice throughout the district. So that's kind of the update, and looking forward to digging in further, and just want to acknowledge the work we have been able to move through this year, which is quite a lot. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for all of those updates. And then we've got our building committee. No? Oh, I'm sorry. I had them in a different order. So public affairs, which is Vice Chair Bondo. You want to take that one?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. And I am the chair of the Public Affairs Committees, and with my colleagues, Russell Brother and Yusuf, and sometimes Chair Sarah Lenz. So what we have accomplished so far from last year, our priority was meeting with the constituents. I mean, we really prioritize meeting with parents. That's what we have accomplished in September last year. So we had some activities and accomplishment activities in ongoing work from 22 to 23. So that means meeting with the parents and meeting with the single secondary student during the fall and spring. So it was really amazing visit and conversation by meeting those two kind of populations. So we learned a lot, especially from students. And I think that's why we want to ongoing and continue for 23-24. And also we have done during the payroll in crisis, we really start meeting with staff from different departments. I mean, on transportation, some of the food service and the central office, just to make sure that we are building some trust and just getting the conversation with the staff, then we know what's going on and how we can support them better. So we had those kind of meetings during December to January. And then we start again having some school visit and meeting with school staff from December to May, and included also the island school. So we just missed a couple of meetings because of summer conflicts of holidays, and some of the superintendent reach committees been going between our times and days. So we didn't have a meeting last month. Then we moved because of the holidays. And then we have the public forum around the budget season. So we've been having the public forum in March around the FY23. So our priorities for 23-24. So we're going to continue the meeting with the student, checking with the student, the staff, listening and see how we can improve the communication, and also supporting the staff and teachers and families. And also what we want to really continue is the implementation of the attendance campaign. So this is something that we really want to emphasize and putting on the high priority for next year, so we can start building on that. And then in the end, improving the communication between schools and our community and the district. So I just want to say thank you to our staff and my colleagues by coming together with a really hard time, but we've really been able to really have our time to meet with the staff and meeting with the student and the parents, just to have their voice heard. And also thank you to Dr. Venezuela, who really been there to emphasize and moving the calendar and the agenda forward. So thank you, and I did just conclude my report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bondo. And now to finance.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the report of the Finance, Operations, and Personnel Committee. That committee consists of myself as chair, as well as board members Opperman, Figdor, and Youssef. For the 22-23 year, highlights include the budget. I have a lot of bullet points around the budget. So beginning in November, the Finance Committee started discussing staff recommendations for areas of priority within the budget. The superintendent's budget was presented in December. We had ongoing discussions in January and February and the public forum in March. And at some point in there, the numbers changed from the state. And so we got to do everything all over again. Meetings continuing in March and April with yet more discussion, including joint city and school finance committee meetings, 2 of those. And that set us up well for unanimous approval by the board in April, and then unanimous approval by the City Council in May. And as we have said several times this evening, the municipal referendum approval by a 3-1 margin in June. So that was a huge accomplishment. We've also served in an oversight role during the payroll challenge mitigation process and the resulting move to the ADP outsourcing. We've received staff updates on organizational structure changes, CIP needs and spending, capital improvements, and also water testing and remediation for elevated lead levels throughout the district. Moving forward into the upcoming year, our priorities are going to be in large part continuing that work. So making sure that we are overseeing a successful execution and completion of the ADP implementation process, continued updates on those topic areas, the organizational structure changes as that continues to evolve, CIP needs and spending, continuing to make sure that the water testing and remediation for elevated lead levels, that work continues. We're also going to be making recommendations for the superintendent evaluation design in collaboration with the board chair, and preparing, because it's never too early, preparing for the next budget process. So as we've acknowledged in several meetings and several conversations, we need to think about significant budgetary changes. And so teeing up that work so that we can do it in a very comprehensive and successful way. And I also want to as the other committee chairs have shared, just deepest gratitude to all the work of the staff that's been fundamental in informing all of our conversations at the committee level. So wanted to add that as well.
Thank you, Board Member Bryden, and thank you to everybody who's put work into those committees. And I'm just really excited to see kind of where we move in the next year. So I'm going to move us now to consent items, acknowledgement of donations made to the district.
Great. Under board policy KCD, the school board accepts by unanimous consent contributions made to the school district of durable goods of significant value and of symbolic importance. As required by policy, all of the donations are listed in the board memo by name and donation accompanying the item. Our practice is that each donor receives a written contribution acknowledgement expressing our heartfelt gratitude and for their tax purposes. So with that, I would like to thank the contributor to the Portland Public Schools, which is Stephen Flannery of Scarborough, who donated a 2004 Honda Odyssey for use in Paths Automotive Repair Education Program. So thank you to that community member for that donation.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. And now we're going to move on to our board focus tonight, which is the high school visioning work.
I'll introduce briefly while the team gets set up.
Go for it.
Okay, great. So October of 2022, the board passed a resolution calling on our team to establish a work group to plan for the future of high school in Portland. The charge included making sure the group established greater consistency across our high school program model. They have been working all year with a group of stakeholders who represent different roles and perspectives to vision a portrait of a graduate that will then guide decisions about our model and evolution. Simultaneously, there's been smaller targeted work groups who are collaborating on aligned, more near-term moves to create more consistency and coherence across the schools. So this evening, we'll have the privilege of hearing from several of the members of this group, including Pamela Otuno, who's the Director of Secondary Access and Outcomes and who's been leading this work. So I'm going to pass it over to, I think, Superintendent Townsend, who's with the team behind him, to update us this evening.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent Nally. And thank you to everybody for coming out and joining us this evening on the eve of the last day of school. So appreciate your time to be with us tonight and share about this work that you all have been doing all year. And so specifically want to appreciate Pamela for her leadership around this work. Certainly we leaned on her heavily as we transitioned into the co-superintendent's role. And I know collaborated deeply with all of our high school leaders to advance this work moving forward. So thank you to you all. Tonight, what we'll do is we'll just start briefly with a little bit of a recall, as you've heard a little bit about tonight, so we can move through that pretty quickly in terms of the charge for high school visioning and alignment, and then share updates on the work of the design team and the work groups, and then we'll hold some space for question and answers. So with that, Pamela?
Good evening, everyone. This is very exciting. I'm here to I'm just going to go over what the resolution charges to do, and then we'll go into what the team has done thus far. And just want to highlight that I've got the design team and members of grade 9 work group here as well, because this has really been a team effort. It's not been one person's work, but it's been really collaborative. So it's very exciting. So when we started off in the fall, right, the charge from the resolution was really to limit disparity in terms of enrollment at the high schools. And so we did that by doing away with school choice and replacing it slightly with school preference. And fortunately for us, we were able to give everyone their first choice in doing that between Portland and Deering. So that was great. And then the other task was really to create a system-wide vision with a common theory of action for all schools. And to do that, we activated a design team, which you'll hear more about the work the design team did. The other task was to really look at creating better alignment and opportunities for our students across programming. And so we really looked at what are the areas we know we can grow and improve on, which structures and systems exist that we can start improving on and creating a work group to work on. So then we came up with 5, and those were outlined in the resolution. Schedule, transitions for 9th grade, and then schools wide systems and supports, right? Special education programming, and then service for our multilingual learners as well. And the last thing outlined was to actually apply for funding to be able to build a new high school, state-of-the-art high school, in order to sort of take care of our schools that are falling apart, but also to make sure that our students have the resources and the tools they need to be prepared for the 21st century workforce that they're going out into. And so there are 2 groups essentially that were created out of this. And I just want to say that the principals are really key. They were really great teammates in doing this work. We met with them on a monthly basis, and it was with their support that we're able to decide what the work groups were. And we're also able to activate a design team. So for that system-wide vision, with a common theory of action, we created a design team, and their task was to create a vision as well as really map out how do we get from here to there, right? So designing that and mapping that out. And then for the programming and opportunities alignment and actually creating those, we looked at the 5 work groups that were outlined in the resolution and realized we don't have capacity to have all 5. So then which ones should we activate this year, recognizing that this work will continue and move on to next year as well. So just special education programming, supports and systems, like we recognize that work will continue, and also it'll live in the vision and design of the high school work. So we can't build for the future without incorporating those things. So then what we're left with was really recognizing that, with the influx of newcomers, seeing our results and that our students, our multilingual learners, are the slowest in terms of seeing growth from them academically, that we should activate a work group, to actually look at our programming and structures and curriculum and assessment to try to improve that as we move forward. And then grade 9, studies and research shows that if we're really strong in our grade 9 structures and systems, and those students are on track to graduate, they're going to end up graduating. So it was really a task of trying to increase our graduation rate. And also seeing that research shows if we sort of flood all of our supports and resources in 9th grade and support those kiddos, then as they move up, they're going to be stronger and better off. So focus on 9th grade as opposed to the other 3 as we tackle this work first. And then schedule is inhibits and also enables, right, access to programming and resources across the board. So that was one that we chose because if we could then get aligned on the schedule, that would open up doors to preventing greater access and equity in programming. And so those were the 3 we're tasked with. You'll hear about all of those. And as members of the design team come up, I'm going to have them actually share their names and where they come from. And just the purpose of presenting this way, so you can see that this is, even though I was charged with leading this, I did not do this alone. It's been really exciting. Walls have come down. People have been really excited for this work, and they've really united as one to move this forward. And so very excited to share. So we'll start with the design team, and Ms. Dame will come up and share a little bit about that.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Allison Dame, current co-principal at Deering, soon to be assistant principal at Deering. So framing this work on a bigger level was kind of this understanding of 3 phases: an understanding phase, which I'll talk about in a little more depth, and then the design phase, which we'll be embarking on next year, and then a building phase. And so for this year, we were in the understanding phase, and that really consisted of 2 big goals for us. One was getting grounded in a common awareness of our current state, meaning how is it that our stakeholders are experiencing our schools and what is it that they want out of a high school. And then the second big goal of the understanding phase was establishing a common vision. So specifically around the getting grounded, we decided together on a group of stakeholders that we were going to get information from. And specifically around establishing the common vision, we wanted to create a portrait of a graduate so that no matter where students went to high school in Portland, that they would achieve certain common things. And then from there, a portrait of a school. So if you're going to achieve that portrait of graduate, what's the school going to look like to achieve that graduate? So our team consisted of a really diverse variety of stakeholders from the city, including parents, students, school leaders, district leaders, community members, and then folks from other academic institutions like Portland Adult Ed, PAS, and we had representatives from SMCC and USM as well. So it was a really exciting collaboration. We met monthly starting in November. We've had one day-long retreat in March, and then we'll actually be concluding the portrait work that I spoke about next week on June 27th. So I spoke about creating a common understanding of our current state. So we actually decided on which stakeholders we were most interested in hearing from. And that became the students, alumni, parents and caregivers, staff, and community members. And then for each of those groups, we developed kind of unique questions to get their input. And then we used a combination of focus groups and surveys to get their input. We want to thank our partnership with the Great Schools Partnership, who helped us a lot in that work. And so altogether, we had input from more than 950 people. I know that there's a really rich data set linked in here, but I think to help summarize some of it, we have some of our members of our team. So I'll invite up Isabella Figdor first.
Hi, my name is Isabella Figdor, and I'm a sophomore or a rising junior at Deering High School. For the last year, I've had the honor of working on the high school design team. I'm extremely grateful to attend school in a district that is putting this much time, thought, and effort into building a future system with a clear purpose that benefits all students. As said earlier, during this process, we've looked at data from several different stakeholder groups, but it's been incredible to see the emphasis put on student voice. There was data collected from students across the district, and then this data was put at the forefront of our conversations. Two of the questions students were asked were, what are your hopes, dreams, and goals for post-high school, and what skills will you need to achieve those things? Listed on this slide are some of the most common student responses. Many students said that their hopes and dreams consisted of financial and career success and stability, the ability to pursue a career, continuing their education, being happy, healthy, and embody that in both body and mind, family and social connections, and the exploration and awareness of the world beyond Portland. And then in order to achieve those hopes, dreams, and goals, many students voiced that they would need life skills such as taxes and resumes, the ability to build social and relationships, like social skills and relationships, communication skills, time management skills, determination and hard work, ethic, perseverance, responsibility, and self-management, as well as math and science skills. Yeah, and so we really kept that in mind throughout this work.
Hi, my name is Gabby, and I'm one of the student representatives, and I'm a student, well, I'm a rising junior at Casco Bay High School. So we're, I'm going to read some of the quotes that was presented, but I kind of can't see them. Okay, so my favorite quote from students, well, alumni are, it faculties a lot of joy and community. The intensives are a great way to help find a path for your future by trying new things. And it provides, it faculties a lot of personal growth by providing lots of opportunity to be staff, like try new things, work collaboratively, and times for self distraction. I feel, and then there's another quote from a student that I feel like a student recognized their achievements, and it says, "I need to build better social skills as well as confidence. I also need to break my habit of procrastination." And one that shows that all the schools are doing really great stuff, that it says, "I wish we had Portland's learning center system, but I also love daring class schedule. Those are separate. I also wish we had slightly more of Casca's project study system, but again, I want it fully." That's it. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kevin Stilfen. I'm the director at PATHS, and I'll talk to you quickly about the community responses. As we reached out to different stakeholders, we felt it was very important to get sort of the outside of education look. The thing that I think is important about this is the commonality between what these groups said. So you'll see some that received multiple votes, we'll call it a vote, on things that they thought would be important for students to be able to have skills and qualities in 2030. And oftentimes I think in education, we feel like, oh, maybe we shouldn't ask the people that I worked for Bath Iron Works once, so I can use them at BIW, what they want in high school graduates. Oh, they just want welders. No, the employees are looking for this skill set. We brought in SMCC and USM to sort of outline what they were looking for in their students, as well as other of our community partners. So the commonality is something to look at, was very similar in what they thought was important. So thanks.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ryan Hutchins. I'm currently a Spanish teacher and dean, as well as wrestling coach at Deering High School, parent of a newly graduated 5th grader at Lyseth, a rising 6th grader, and also a rising 8th grader. So we'll both be at Lyman Moore next year. So I'm here to talk about the staff portion of the responses. And so, as Mr. Stilfen just mentioned, a lot of commonalities that we've seen from students to community to staff. And so I wanted to speak to that. So I'm actually, thank you for that segue. Appreciate it. And sorry, I'm just gonna have to hold this up because the eyes are getting bad here. So in looking at the staff responses in comparison to the student community ones, we have definitely seen many commonalities in terms of our thoughts and goals for a Portland Public Schools graduate. Communication, self-advocacy, problem solving, responsible citizenship, and yes, even those content-specific skills. All right, I see you students with your recognition of math and science skills on your slide. I would like to see world language skills added as well, but I guess that's just the Spanish teacher in me, so I'll have to bypass on that one for now. But I speak to these commonalities in thoughts and goals on those previous slides because they serve to remind us that we have more in common than not. And yet, in order to achieve these common goals, we need to take advantage of something that is critically important in our district. That even though we have common goals, we have unique perspectives on how to help our students achieve them, and we need to start bringing those perspectives together in a real fashion. While we are currently separate schools with our own individual styles, practices, and personalities, there is much that we can learn from each other. It has been exciting to work with our design team of staff and students from all high schools, as well as many community partners, to learn from each other. We recognize that there is no one school that is only doing things the right way. We each have aspects of our own programming where we excel and others where we can improve. We understand and value that diverse opinions can and must come together in order to achieve a common purpose. Just as a rope is much stronger than any of the individual strands that are woven together could ever be on their own, our work to weave together our individual strengths will create a stronger educational experience for all our students. It was great to hear Ms. Nally, and thank you for all your work, by the way. I get to add into the thanks. It was great to hear you bring up collective efficacy, because that is one of the biggest predictors of student success. And that is absolutely the why in our work, to create the best opportunities for our students to succeed, not just while in Portland Public Schools, but throughout their lives. As a proud teacher, coach, dean, parent, and alumnus of Portland Public Schools, I look forward to our continued work in the coming years to help create the best schools possible for all City of Portland students. So Ms. Otuna will pick it back from here to show you more of the work that we've done and will continue to do. Thank you.
That does look pretty small from here. I'm just thinking. So just want to recognize that as we set out to do this work, that a lot of work has been done. Like prior to this year, we've had several years of great work. So we weren't starting from scratch. And so just this slide sort of recognizes all the work that we've done, right? We've in various areas where we're looking at best practices, policies, and creating visions. We gathered in the past few years, we've gathered a lot of stakeholders and gotten feedback from them and trying to sort of think about what is that we want to see in our graduates? What do we want to make sure our students are able to do? So just this recognizes all that work that happened. You know, you'll notice there we have the instructional vision, we have the equity policy, we have youth groups that met and gave feedback. We've got we have our graduation standards, we have student handbooks as well. So all of that contributes to this work. And so what happened last year, and just want to give many thanks and credit to these three folks, is last year, Molly Myers, Kate Gardoki from Great Schools Partnership, and Barrett Wilkinson got together and they spent hours looking at all these documents and actually extracting from them sort of implications for what what we would want to see in a graduate. And so they documented that on that document that you see there. And so we had this work in addition to all the feedback we received from almost 1,000 stakeholders this year, right? And this work, which also involved lots of stakeholder feedback, we were able to bring it together to create a draft of our vision, which was in our Portrait of a Graduate and Portrait of a School. So you're going to hear a little bit more about what that draft has in it as we move on.
Good evening. I'm Sheila Jepson, the principal at Portland High School. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the Portrait of a Graduate. And as you can see there, the very first meeting on November 10th, we talked about a Portrait of a Graduate. What is it? We see it as a portrait that predicts success, not just academic. And you can see from the starred areas that we have there that it's areas like practice civic and environmental engagement, be culturally responsive, nurture wellness and balance in life. So we believe that those are essential skills and attributes, kind of hopes and dreams that we have of our graduates, taking into account students' mindsets and students' passions. And we also see the Portrait of a Graduate as something that will ask, how will students be empowered when they leave Portland Public Schools? So we started the very first meeting on November 10th, hearing about a Portrait of a Graduate from another school. And then we dug in and spent many hours looking at different iterations of a Portrait of a Graduate. And we really rolled up our sleeves there and spent, I think, some really good time talking with each other, mixing and matching and getting people involved in that work. And finally, it struck us toward the end of some of our work that, unlike other high school design work that we've done over the years, we're starting with a portrait of a graduate because we believe that that's the foundation for what we build from there, as opposed to starting with a building and then we layer in the work. This we feel is our foundation, which will then help build the walls of our building. Thanks.
Thanks. I'm Derek. I'm principal at Casco Bay High School. I want to pile on my thanks for the spectacular leadership of Ms. Nally, superintendent. I want to thank Pamela for her leadership of this design team task force, and Allison Perkin for giving me cookies to make it through since lunchtime. So I really needed that. So I'm charged with talking about the draft portrait of a school. And just to be clear again, and Mr. Stofan mentioned it, that we're talking about a view of the future, the kind of the near future. We're looking at 2030. We're not looking at 2080. And we're not looking at tomorrow. We're looking at the near horizon in the development of this. And the portrait of the school, as was referenced earlier, is the idea of what kind of school do we need to create the graduate that Sheila was just talking about. If we're going to have students with the attributes that are listed in that portrait of a graduate, what is the school doing to make that possible? I'd also say that this is the draft that we have has been very much iterative. And each time we've gotten another wave of feedback from students, from teachers, from community members. We've looked back at our draft and say, where is what we have so far consonant with what we're seeing in this data, and where is there dissonance, and where do we need to make tweaks, and where do we need to make some additions? We are meeting, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we're going to meet next Tuesday. And we're going to have our final kind of full day retreat. We've finished looking, I believe we finished looking at our last data set. And so next we're going to be really honing in on all the feedback we've gotten on the draft so far. We'd welcome feedback from school board members and then get to a place where we have a draft that we think is presentable to the board and the new superintendent. The pieces of the school that are going to create this fabulous graduate, some of them are probably not surprising to you, and they relate to things like meaningful curriculum, having an awesome facility that facilitates all that learning. But then there are other pieces that might be a little more surprising, such as a focus on building community and really being intentional in the SEL work within the school to make sure each kid feels like they deeply fully belong and are known well. An emphasis on student agency, student leadership, as well as things like wellness. We have in the curricular pieces, there was a sense that we want to be explicit. We want kids to learn about cultures different from their own, as well as their own culture. We want to make sure that that's reflective in the curriculum, which is consistent with a lot of the curricular work that's been going on in the district in the last couple of years. We want to make sure kids are prepared and understand their future options, as well as getting lots of opportunity to have experiences outside of the classroom. Lots of talk of things like internships for every kid to make sure that the learning is happening in the fabulous city of Portland, as well as within our classrooms. So that gives you a sense, and you can see, as with the portrait of a graduate, that there are various bullets that clarify those big points. And there's probably way more here than will actually be on the fabulous, one-page graphic that you'll get. But know that every one of these ideas is undergirded with 7 or 8 other good ones. So as I alluded to in the timeline, if you hit the next slide, we are close to kind of completing official draft 1. It's really draft 16, but the draft that we will share kind of publicly, and I think it goes to the superintendent, I presume, once we're done with our work. But our work as a task force will really be over next week, or for this phase. I think what was called by, I can't remember who called it. We've had so many people up here. The design phase. Who called it that? Allison, I think. Allison called it the design phase. So we're about done with the design phase. But then once that's done, we will send this back out again for all sorts of feedback and conversations with the same stakeholders we've initially solicited. So from parents, from you all, from community members, from students, of course, and from staff, with the hope that by the end of the fall, it'll be in a place that it can really drive that next piece, which is the design phase.
So looking ahead for what next year holds, and
Derek Pierce sort of already shared some of this here. So next year, really what we're going to be doing is taking the Portrait of a Graduate and the Portrait of a School and actually looking at moving into that design phase of actually creating the structures and systems we want to see that line up with what we see in that Portrait of a Grad and Portrait of a School. And so going to the next level of detail of what that actually looks like and designing. And part of that work will require actually visiting some high schools outside of our own district to sort of learn from them. And so we're hoping we'll go maybe far out west, but we might do some road trips as well. But the idea is really look at exemplary schools that we can learn from as we build and not recreate necessarily in some ways. And in doing this work, we're going to be looking at sort of some shared frameworks. So focused on academics, right? Curriculum and assessment, college and career readiness, which has been outlined in what people are hoping, the skills they feel they need in order to succeed and be able to attain their hopes and dreams. Personal enrichment and social emotional well-being also, all of those things will be part of what we designed for. And all of those things have shown up in the Portrait of a Grad as well.
And as we approach the application for the integrated consolidated high school, keep in mind that we're looking at a school that is designed 9 through 16. And that 2 years after high school, that is a model that actually exists in Massachusetts and other places. And in fact, in Maine CTE schools, we have our concurrent enrollment, which allow our students to earn college credit that creates a transcript. So that structure exists. Now, what it looks like for us is remains to be worked out. The fun piece, I believe, and the really super exciting work that's going to come is, what does it look from 10 back to 9? What does that integrated high school look like, with all the best components of career and technical education, as well as what the other schools in the district do, that are really wonderful stuff that we can integrate, wind it up, and submit this applications. And again, the partnerships with the UMaine system and the community college systems are already there. They're being strengthened every day. So that work is going to be really super exciting and will benefit the students of the city of Portland. So thanks.
And just briefly, an update, that we've shared and, with board members, but, with the community, that, the legislation is moving forward to advance the opportunity for us to apply for this. And so we are hopeful about approval of that moving through the legislature that would create the opportunity for us to apply as of July 1, 2025. So this coincides well with the timeline of our current work to, kind of do this from this understand phase that you've heard about tonight, lean deep into the design phase to result into the application that we could put forward. So the legislation has changed such to allow the opportunity for us to, it had previously been, high schools across communities. And so now it's around the consolidation of just existing comprehensive high schools. So just a little bit of, so this kind of speaks to the 21st century learning environments. And so just as a reminder, kind of the components of that application, are around a regional high school, the fully integrated career and technology education high school. So paths for us, the higher education center, so we can offer on-site some of those extension opportunities and kind of dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment. And then the offering of the, recognized license and certificates of value for students as they graduate. So tied in deeply, feels like it aligns deeply with the, what we've developed and sourced from our engagement with all of our stakeholders that you've heard about in terms of providing a school that provides rich, meaningful curriculum and, helps students identify and develop their, paths for the future.
So now for the alignment work groups. So I'll share about grade 9 and then go into the English language development as well. So first, grade 9. So what's exciting about the grade 9 work group, I'm going to look at my slides here just to make sure I can see them. What's exciting about this is what we set out to do, we actually accomplished. And it was just very exciting in terms of strengthening what existed, as well as revamping old things that had been thrown to the wayside and just bringing them back and making them stronger, as well as just activating some new structures that didn't exist before to strengthen grade 9 and support for our students. So the outcome for this really was to identify strengths and promising practices at all 3 schools. And we're able to do that, and then recommend and make recommendations for increased alignment among the 3 schools. So we were also able to do that in terms, and you'll see a little bit later on what now is common amongst all 3 high schools. Some had, and some just adopted some new practices there. And then, so the guiding question, these are the 2 strong guiding questions that guided the work that we did. So how do we ensure that students are given the tools to navigate the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade? A lot of work was done there, and some of it new and some of it just strengthening what already existed in the past. And then how do we help students set goals and navigate high school pathways? And that really involved looking at data and having data teams at the grade 9 level. So the grade 9 work group started meeting on a monthly basis as the high school design team did. Their first meeting was in December. And so it was composed of building leaders, assistant principals, teachers at each of the grade 9 teams at the 3 high schools, and social workers and counselors as well were parts of those teams. And the meetings were, we actually also got support from the RISE Network. So the RISE Network is an organization in Connecticut, and they specialize in grade 9 structures, and they've helped districts to actually improve their structures. So we partnered with them because why recreate when there's a proven system out there that works? So they were able to actually provide coaching for our grade 9 team leaders and provide templates and all sorts of resources and meet with them on a monthly basis as well. So they were really integral in this work that was done. And the outcome of this work, so just to on-track definition. So we as a district had an on-track definition, but it was sort of lived with the district office. And so shared that with the high school 9th grade teams, and they used that and they actually, some of the teams actually also put them up on posters and shared them with students, and it became very visible and came alive. And a lot of the data meetings that we're having, was really based on looking at our students on track to graduate. What do we need to put in place for supports and all of that? So grade 9 data team meetings were, which already existed, at some of our schools, just was revamped and was strengthened through this process. The other thing that was new actually was the grade 8-9 teacher collaboration. So we were able to pick one day where we had all our 8th grade and 9th grade teachers come together. And this came from not only what we set out to do in terms of supporting transition, but also the 9th grade teachers were saying, we'd like to meet with our 8th grade colleagues, and we'd like to know how the kids are doing so that we can better prepare as we plan for next year. And so we had a Walls Down Day where we had all the teachers come together by content, and they shared academic as well as social emotional needs and content standards and everything. And teachers love that. So they're actually asking for more of that. So the goal is that next year we'll have 2 of those at the very least, one in the fall and one in the spring again, and build upon that. That was a huge win and really strengthened the collaboration. The other thing, summer bridge programming. So years back, it wasn't called Summer Bridge, but there was a Summer Bridge program that the district had. So that's when I say that some things were brought back and revamped, it's the Summer Bridge program. So just in terms of transition, supporting kids as they move on to high school, lots of research shows that we really need to have this bridge, that happens in the summer, a handoff into 9th grade. So this program is to help, it's going to be all 3 high schools will have it in August. Late July, August this year. And it's going to be welcoming 8th graders who are rising 9th graders, helping them meet their teachers, get a sense of what high school feels like, what the expectations are like, get a sense of the building, do maybe some field trips also locally around where their high school is located. So really come in ready and prepared, and also be role models for those that were not able to take part in the Summer Bridge program. So just strengthening our transition and 9th grade work that way. The other pieces, I mentioned our support from the RISE Network. So one of the things that we were able to do as a result of that support was visit Platt High School in Connecticut. And we were able to see live what they're doing, because they've got strong grade 9 systems and structures. And one of the things that we saw is they have a grade 9 counselor. So this year coming up, we're going to have grade 9 counselor really honing in support for grade 9 teams and looking at data at the high schools as well. And then next year, we're just going to continue building upon that work. And there are other sort of structures and things that we had outlined we'd work on. So we'll tackle another one as we move on, as we continue building upon what we did this year, but adding on top of that and improving. So one of the things that would be great is, so I sort of gave a broad overview of what the alignment that all 3 schools did, but each school also within their teams really did some great work in terms of strengthening what was happening there. So the principals are going to share briefly what each school did.
Hello again. So at Deering, some of our, we had some 9th grade teaming structures that had sort of atrophied over time just because of a transition in staff and teachers and leaders. But we did have a team that was really enthusiastic about bringing them back. So they've been attending RISE Network events now for 1.5 years, I believe, including participating in a consortium alongside Portland and Casco, and really learning from schools in Hartford, Connecticut, and Worcester, Massachusetts. So it's been a really rich opportunity for us, and we've been really eager to just soak up everything we can learn from that network. So because we were a little bit just beginning, from the ground up, unlike Casco and Portland in some ways, we really started by just providing the time for 9th grade teachers to meet, identifying 2 9th grade leaders, and then really having them train up in really strong protocols for leading productive meetings with that team. And the goal there was to both uncover the gaps where our systems were not working for our 9th graders, and then to have the right people at the table to then brainstorm those solutions, and really with an eye on 2 groups of students that we know have had an opportunity gap in our system, which is our developing and transitioning MLs and our Black students. So that was really successful because they were really data-driven meetings, very solution-oriented. And what the team kind of came to as their sort of next step is really working on what we call tier 2 intervention. So that's when a student starts to slip academically or behaviorally, having a really quick time-bound specific intervention to help them. And so the team really feels like now they've got the time to meet, they have the protocols, and they can begin implementing those strategies. Additionally, we've been up to a lot. Additionally, we did use one of our equity enhancement staff additions to add a 5th counselor who's going to be specifically an on-track coordinator. And as Ms. Atuno referred to, we are really kind of just stealing the best ideas of some of the schools that we've gotten to meet. And so our counselors have met with counselors at Platt High School and at a high school in Hartford to get ideas. So we're really excited about the possibility of an on-track coordinator really working with a subset of 9th graders and giving more wraparound support, the subset coming in with certain early warning indicators. And then we are one of the schools that has on-track definitions postered around the 9th grade wing. And so as Mr. Tuna said, that does feel like it's coming alive and creates this shared language. And we really want to get to a place where a parent calls up to call their student out and they're like, well, I have you on the phone. Let me check your student's on-track status. So just to make that super just unavoidable in our culture. Sorry, I'm also dealing with the small text here. And I think I got it. I'll just end by saying the team has been super eager. Our team really sees the value of the work. They're really proud of the progress we've made. And I think that we're kind of entering a phase where we'll start to actually impact our data, and we'll be able to come back and really be proud of the ways we've changed our 9th grade status. And I'll just end by saying we're really excited this summer in August to be having a summer bridge program, and they're hard at work. They'll do anything. So we'll be knocking on doors to get some of those rising 9th graders to be with us this August. So thank you very much.
Hi, we're also pleased to be a part of this network and are grateful to RISE for the support they provided and to Pamela for her leadership in convening us. Similarly to Deering, we've benefited a lot from some of the protocols that have been shared around how to talk effectively about students in need and how to develop action plans in an effective and efficient way. We also spent some time as a student support team. We took over the 9th grade team and did some explicit teaching of SEL skills that the 9th grade identified as being important, and that provided some time for the 9th grade team to plan the expedition that culminated the year and enabled them to kind of upgrade what they were hoping and planning to do with kids. So that had it was a virtuous cycle of all sorts of benefits, from our 9th grade team, student support team, providing more explicit support for the 9th graders, and then the 9th grade teachers being able to provide even richer experiences for the kids. I'm excited. Next week, I'll be going down with our 9th grade team leader to a conference that's going to convene the entire 9th grade network. So we're looking forward to more learning as a part of that. And our summer bridge program will be on August 23rd and 24th. We're hoping to have all of our incoming 9th graders, many could possibly come attend for kind of 2 days of orientation, serving the purposes that Pamela outlined. And we're also going to try and spend some time doing individual outreach to families who may be interested in having some special attention for their kids to ease with the transition. I'll echo what Pamela also said about the idea of the 9th grade counselor, that our 9th grade counselor has been meeting with students who are coming in to see us significantly this spring, and is also a meeting with 8th grade teachers, so that we feel we are better informed than we've ever been about our incoming class, and we know that'll make a difference for both students and staff.
And Portland High has used this time this year. We did have a new grade 9 team leader, and so that made things, made us able to look at what we've been doing for many years in the 9th grade teaming structures. But what we believe is that the collaboration of teachers really makes a difference. So really taking a look at that time that teachers have, if they're collaborating about a group of students and they're coming up with different instructional strategies that can work for those students, that's going to be our best ideas. So we really looked at how we can support a shared group of students, and with a focus on data and attendance data in particular, so we can intervene early and as needed. And those meetings are facilitated by our 9th grade lead teacher. And we also are looking forward to having a summer bridge program this summer with students the week of July 24th.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Very exciting work. I'm very excited. I forget. So just moving on to share some work about our English language development work group. You can see on this slide that we had the same outcomes outlined for our English language development work group, which was really to strengthen and programs and look at what the promising practices are at all 3 schools, and then come up with a recommendation for alignment across all 3 schools. And what we ended up, the guiding questions are there for you. I'm just going to go more into what we end up doing this year. We didn't get into a lot of what we thought we'd do, but we end up actually moving the work forward. So we're set up to look at programming and curriculum next year. So we're set up and lined up well to do that. I'm going to actually have Ms. Perkins come up here and share.
Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Perkins. I'm a language acquisition specialist with the Department of Language Development. I'm also a half-time teacher at Adult Ed, and I teach many of our multilingual parents. So it's nice to have those 2 perspectives. The team was really awesome to work up with. It was a cross section of ESOL teachers, building principle, and guidance. And that seemed to be a really effective mix to be able to bring different perspectives on serving multilingual students. We had the same, kind of meeting structure. I think we met 4 times. And our discussions about programming and grade level standards support and transitions, in addition to those guiding questions on the previous slide, we really, since we were talking high school students, we really tried to focus on also what's in the best long-term interest of multilinguals, of having that eye towards Portland Promise and post-secondary success, and how are we positioning them to go forward. Language acquisition, especially when we're talking about secondary school, just really important to be mindful that it is inherently a time-based immersive process. It takes time, and it takes quite a bit of time. The research, 30 years of research, keeps pointing towards 5 to 7 years to go from a beginner to advanced fluency. And advanced fluency is what we think of really positioned well for post-secondary success. Immersive in that you have to be all in language all the time. And I think that also speaks to the drive you've heard for us wanting our multilingual students to access grade level content and language, because you can't learn it if you're not in it. So those 2 things. We began looking at what are the current programming and supports across the 3 different high schools and paths. So we were all together and populated a document to look at what we had. The eye was towards identifying strengths and promising approaches that we could share then across schools. And then we pivoted partway through into the winter and started to focus on how credit unique to multilinguals is earned across the district. Specifically, that would be international transfer credit and content credit that's at the beginner level in sheltered classes, with the goal always to align across the schools so that we have similar focus. And we expect that, that work of both looking at the practices across school and analyzing credit, it's all a portal into how the grade level content standards can act as a guide for really holding these high expectations for all students, and to be able to really embed them into practices and support and instruction. And that will form the basis for the work going forward next year.
I think this is your laptop. So what's up next for future work for the English language development work group? So, just as Allison Perkins shared, is that, the grounded this year and what the current state is, like looked at qualitative as well as quantitative data to understand how our students are performing. What are the promising practices? What are some of the pitfalls that we need to work through and certain practices to leave behind? So did that work this year? And then also looked at how do we commonly award credit for international transcripts as well as students exiting ILD classes. And so in doing that work and trying to see how do we award credits commonly, what arose was that, well, we actually need to look at the curriculum and the assessment that's happening in the classes. We can't just say, let's all award 2 credits for this class without really knowing what's happening, right? Because we're trying to solve for that problem to make sure our students are successful, empowered in order to succeed. And so the work for next year, having done that now, we'll be able to go right into bringing teachers to the table and looking at curriculum and assessment and instruction, right? Doing that work together and aligning around that. So then we can ensure that all our students, regardless of what high school they're in or which class they're in, right? If it's a similar class, they're receiving the same instruction, the same lessons, and they're actually achieving and ready to move on to the mainstream classes. So that's the work that we'll be doing next year, focused on supports, right? Literacy and numeracy and strengthening those.
All right, just the last couple slides here for just a minute, just to talk about, our efforts around scheduling. So this was the area that was the most challenging for us this year, for a number of reasons. One, just timeline wise in terms of, when this work got launched. And obviously that was in the context of the depths of the payroll crisis and so forth. So certainly we're challenged by that. But as we began to engage in this conversation, a few things surfaced pretty early on that made us step back. So first, some of our initial data analysis, as we thought about comparing structures across our two comprehensive high schools, did not indicate that there was necessarily, one structure that was more equitable than another. So there was many more layers to it in terms of progress towards advanced courses, access to interventions and supports. So that was one thing, just, it wasn't as transparent as, is the alternating block schedule better than a 4-block schedule? And then we, there was insufficient time to determine those substantive changes. We felt a real commitment to land any changes prior to the high school preference process, just so that we could follow through and deliver on what students were signing up for. So we didn't want to make substantive changes outside of the timeline of that process. And then, we really reflected that, it was potentially a bit of the cart before the horse. So as we were engaging and launching the design work, we were struck by the fact of whether, what that might unfold for us in terms of ultimately a schedule that would be more aligned with what's developed as the portrait of a school here, right? And making substantive changes in the short term might be problematic in terms of our long-term vision in that respect. So, and that ultimately this last piece is that, it wasn't, approaching this work with the right frame of kind of constrained a bit with kind of our existing two schedules, and that we would benefit from stepping back and thinking about what are some common criteria to evaluate what would be the best schedule to be in kind of commonality and alignment. So appreciations to, our school leaders for engaging in this. It's been kind of complex to think about, at all levels of school. Schedules are kind of one of the most challenging things. Certainly at our comprehensive high schools, they're very substantive, significant organizers of time, resources, and program. So, changing schedule is no small feat. So, but, we've begun just very, initial conversations about what some of the criteria might be for us to step back in this coming year to think about what would an equitable schedule look like. So you can see some of these, access to rigorous coursework, providing for teacher collaboration time to sustain the kind of work that we heard about in grade 9, ensuring that it enables appropriate services for students with disabilities or multilingual learners, opportunities to build community and belonging, again, consistent with that emerging portrait of a school, thinking about balances around teacher workload and sustainability, and then access to the social emotional development. So we imagine in the coming year doing some kind of, restarting with the understand phase around our existing schedules to think about where we have strengths and where we have areas for growth in relationship to these criteria as we're doing the design work for the larger school, right, vision, to think about what ultimately will be the best schedule to kind of, as we move into the build phase, right, that last phase, what we would build out to be able to ensure that we're able to provide the kinds of experiences for students and the kinds of supports they'll need to be able to graduate prepared and empowered and embody that portrait of a grad. So with that, we'll close kind of our report, as expected in our resolution, and open it for any kind of questions or feedback here before we wrap this board focus.
Board Member Upperman.
Wow. You've done exceptional work working together. I don't know where you found it, if you slept, because I know from my experience even finding out about these programming is incredibly time consuming, and yet you're teaching and leading schools. I'm excited about this whole process. I have, and I think you've got the ninth grade thing is wonderful. I've experienced some of that orientation piece that it makes a great setup, collaborating with 8th and 9th grade teachers. I was a 9th grade teacher for part of my career. Absolutely. If you can keep that going, it's hard to keep it up, but to keep that going is incredibly good. What I'm really looking forward to is, as I see moving into one large community in the same space. And I and will we really be able to see students having access to easy access to all the different flavors that you have? Must a student be only in a CTE program to have access to a CTE course? Must a student be only in Casco Bay type experiential learning to have that only way to have that particular kind of access to programming? I challenge you, I don't know how you can do it, that you think broadly on that, because I think that is where this process is going to be enriching for everyone. English language learners, English speakers, native speakers, students that are gifted, but maybe not in the GT classification. I've always been frustrated with recognizing what GT means, because gifted and talent does not always mean you do a high math class. So I'm hoping that as you look at the programming and your collaboration, that you think of that way of looking at the students. So my question, all that stuff is, are you going to blend things, or are we still going to be 4 high schools in the same building?
I mean, I'd say briefly, that's what the work of this next year is how to think about what that would look like, right? What the implications are, establishing some of those kind of common frameworks. So, this year was really, from a history of the most recent phase in our high school work, that members of this team could speak about, even more so prior to my tenure here, had focused on identifying different models for the schools. And so, we felt like this understand phase of coming back together with kind of common vision around our programming was this first phase. And so in the design phase, that's the work we'll be kind of exploring next year, and what different models look like to be able to both balance, kind of shared experiences for students, as well as the opportunities for students to kind of pursue individual interests and passions. So.
I just have one quick question, and then Board Member Santiago, and then Vice Chair Bondo. Superintendent Townsend, I was wondering if you could just speak to why we're pursuing the funding for a consolidated high school versus trying to invest in our separate schools the way that they are, just kind of like the process that has gotten us to this point where that is like a viable path forward.
Yep. This is grounded in, I believe, our 2017 facilities study, in which it indicated in 2017 dollars that each of our high schools, in the short term, I'm now going to be challenged to remember the exact figures. But, we needed, like, I believe, $20 million in short-term facilities improvements and $160 million, over the next 20. And so, that being given that, Portland community had invested in the buildings for our future and the renovations for our elementary schools, and that there is a potential, state resource for this that we feel like could both address, our facilities needs, but as well as you're seeing kind of have the opportunity to support our programmatic interests. That's what's led us to be interested in kind of pursuing that at the state level.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that just felt like important context in this bigger conversation. So thank you for adding that. Board Member Santiago.
I have a couple of things. So I just wanted to say I really appreciate your work with the 8th grade, 9th grade teacher collaboration, because I think I went through COVID that time. If there was I know that was such a hard time, but I struggled with math ever since the lack of communication. So I think that's really going to help my sisters and incoming freshmen as well. So that's very hopeful. And then my other question was, you're talking about the schedule. Are we planning to implement this in the next couple of years, like aligning? Or are we thinking just when the new school comes, we're going to?
I'd say, with many of these work groups is we're trying to identify opportunities for alignment and consistency along the way. It's not a wait till, right? Some of the elements might, as we pursue the design phase, there might be things that won't be implementable until that, future state. But, we're open to kind of stepping back and thinking about what are the changes that we could make in the short term, right? To both improve alignment and consistency, but most importantly, to improve kind of access for students to, all of those things that were enumerated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Santiago. Vice Chair Bondo, and then Board Member Victor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. This is amazing, and really thank you for the presentation. It's a lot to absorb. I have a lot of question detail, but I will going to get a 3 overall because of the time. And my first one is on the portrait of the graduate. So I just want to get a little bit of understanding if that portrait was a balance between what we have already currently and what we are projecting for the future. I mean, what we want to see happening over the 2023. So I just want to see if it's a both of, I mean, if we balance what we have already as a portrait of the graduate and what we have drafted here.
I'm going to answer based on my understanding of the question. So the portrait of a graduate we don't have a current portrait of a graduate, right? So, and right now, the portrait of a graduate is really telling us what we're trying to prepare our students to be able to do while they're with us and when they leave high school. And so a lot of the elements in that portrait of a graduate are things that have come up in different documents we've created as a community, as well as all the feedback we've gathered from stakeholders. And what we need to do is be able to implement the things that are in there so that it can be actualized and come alive. So the portrait of a graduate is not. So when you say, do we have it now as opposed to?
No. I say, yeah, because when I see that is what we're projecting, right?
Yeah.
When we see when we're going in 2023. So I really understand that's a draft for what we need to see on the 21st century learning and how we are projecting, how we want to see happening as a graduate when we ending the high school, what we want to see them happening. But when I look at currently what we have, and is anything that I can look at the key attributes that can be in place right now for us to
I understand. Okay. Yeah, I understand the question. So it's more like, so what are we doing now as we work to build, right? Yeah. So that came up in our design team meeting last week, actually. So the question is, we're building for a future state, a future school, but we're here now and we do need to solve for problems that are rising now. So we recognize that. So that's one of the things we're doing by activating the work groups, is looking to see what are, based on where we are now, we still need to be serving our students and improving our structures and systems and providing support. So what can we start to do now? So that's why the work groups, the task is not for the recommendation to come when the design is finished and we've built, but we're actually implementing things now and making changes now, like with grade 9 as an example. So we recognized that we needed, right, transition support, like the summer bridge, rather than waiting for 2030 to implement that, we did it now. And so that's what we're going to continue doing. And we're going to have other work groups also to help support students as they move on. So we'll be implementing and we'll be making changes and supporting students in our current day as we build for the future as well.
Okay.
And
so maybe
sorry, Ms. Bundo. I just wanted to add that, to the point, this is aspirational, but also it's building on strengths in place. So our high schools aren't, blank slates. So all of our schools, I would say, are doing many things that are aligned to the portrait. And so I just want to honor and acknowledge the really strong practices that do currently exist. So I think what's exciting is that now we can have a shared collective vision and evaluate, where each school is vis-a-vis the different components. And so each school will probably have different things that they're strong in and weaker in, but just also where, there is elements of this in place throughout our high schools right now. It just hasn't been synthesized in a collective vision in this regard yet.
And just adding to what Ms. Nally just shared in terms of their strengths at each of the high schools, that was very apparent with the grade 9 work. When we met as district work group, it was phenomenal to watch, to just have each of the schools sharing, Casco sharing, this is what we do, and Portland sharing, and Deering sharing, and borrowing, sharing ideas and getting excited and not building from scratch, but actually looking at strengths and building upon that and getting aligned in that way.
All right. So those are strengths are your most of the key indicator and building on some of the benchmark to try to move those portrait of graduate for the future?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I say the elements you just mentioned right now, then you try to put it in place. Those are being considered to be your key indicators or benchmark to move your work forward. That's what I just want to make clear.
Yeah. Yes. And then linked in some of the slides too is each of the agendas, for instance, for the work groups has a document link there that has some more of those key elements. And some of those are the things we want to move forward. And those came from actually, the work when we had our schools assessed 3 or 4 years back. What was the assessment?
The Spring Point?
Spring Point, yeah. So Spring Point came through, did an assessment of our schools and created a report for us of what's missing and some of the key elements we need to focus on that lead to achievement. And so those are the things that we pulled out and outlined as elements to work on as we get aligned and strengthen our systems and programs.
All right. So I will follow up. Yeah. Okay. I will get more detail later on, maybe as soon as we keep moving on. So my last question is on the challenges. I know I'm not going to go on the scheduling. I just look at the work is done and on the different, like the design group and the work group with different community and the staff. So I just want to identify the most challenges and how did you strategize to try to overcome those barriers and challenges? And that's the A, and my B question is that on the teachers, around the teachers, because changing is all the time a little harder when you see the load of the work they have. So I just wonder, as those resolution and redesigning ideas, come out to the teachers and what kind of feedback you had, or is too heavy to move forward, or just want to get some feedback, because I saw the code from the student, but I didn't see anything from teachers.
Yeah. So there's quotes from teachers that I could have put there. I didn't put them. I just wanted to highlight the students because those are the ones, the people we're serving and doing this work. But there are quotes I can share as well from the staff. Challenges. So a challenge with the design work and getting feedback was really getting parents at first. That was a challenge, and getting multilingual families to give feedback. That was really a challenge. We're able, in our May 8th focus group event, we had 20 families from the Spanish community show up, which was phenomenal, but we were lacking a lot of others that weren't represented. So that's been a challenge that hasn't been solved for, just doing outreach to our community specialists to see what are some ways we can get feedback from those communities. And so the goal is to try to problem solve for this. And when we share our finalized draft and we get feedback on that final draft, to make sure we include those families, and maybe it's going to be more of a one-on-one meeting or going to the communities where they live rather than having an event at one school at one time that doesn't meet their needs. So trying to solve for that. We were able to, via Reach My Teach, send out communication via email and text to our other families that were not multilingual families, and they were able to respond. So we got about, I want to say 170 responses within just a couple of days via that method. So that worked really well. And then another challenge with the work group was, especially with the English language development, was just teacher capacity to be able to take on another meeting in the afternoon. So especially our multilingual, our ESOL teachers who are already feeling like exhausted and worn and doing a lot for our students. So it was really hard to bring them to the table, and they were essential for that work. So that was a challenge that we need to think through and try to solve for when we think of scheduling for these meetings. And then you asked another question that I forgot about. What was the last question, Ms. Bondo?
You answer all of them. You combine all the answers. Right. Thank you. Great job. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Board Member Victor.
Thank you so much, Chair. This is really exciting. Seems like just yesterday that we passed the resolution to really jumpstart this work. So to go from that resolution in, I believe, October of last year to to this presentation today and all the work that's behind it is just really impressive, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. My question is with respect to the portrait of a graduate and the portrait of a school, and whether or not they are fully aligned. So do they actually fully fit together? So I looked for, I was looking at the very small print version and trying to see is there a through line from the portrait of the graduate to the portrait of the school? And just for one example that I was looking for, just out of, just trying to do that exercise myself, I was looking at, I forget the language that was used in the presentation, but essentially like an engaged citizen is somewhere in the portrait of a graduate, but I don't see anything about kind of civic engagement or in the portrait of a school. So just wondering, how do we ensure those two are fully aligned?
I think that's the work of next Tuesday. I think we haven't been able to, I think I could probably make that case, but it isn't clear for sure. And I think part of what we're going to need to do next Tuesday and over the next couple of months is to try and make the whole document clear and how the two sides correlate with each other. Right now, there isn't a direct correlation that the first indicator correlates with the first indicator on either side. We kind of did them separately, but they should mirror each other pretty closely. There shouldn't be a disconnect there. And so if there is, that's something that hopefully as we keep drafting, we will be able to make clear to everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not so much pointing out a disconnect, but just a curiosity of how those two align and ensuring they do.
Yes, and we aim for that as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. That's all I had.
Great. Any other questions from the board? I just had a couple of quick ones. One just commenting like how exciting this is. Like every time we went, that was a lot of slides, but I didn't stop getting excited every time we went to another slide. So I just really, and it was just so cool to hear all the different voices coming through in the presentation. And it feels like a body of work that has been moved for with a lot of people. So thank you for your leadership on that. And thank you all for participating in that. And it just Ryan, what you were saying that the many strings coming together are so much stronger, and it really felt that. So thank you for that. And just a couple of questions. The multilingual community in terms of parents and students and families and community members, are they part of the design teams as well? Is there any representation there?
Yeah, one of our community specialists is a member of the design team who is also a parent.
Perfect. And then just really wanting to flag some of the same challenges you were talking about in terms of engaging the multilingual families we experienced during the superintendent search. And so just really setting, I don't want us to get to a final without that input. And that feels like a hard stop for me that has to be incorporated. So just, I don't know how we do that or how you do that, but it sounds like that's also on your radar, but just wanted to emphasize that. And then last thing, all of you together in all of your presentations, I kept hearing the words time, collaboration, and data over and over again, which was just a great theme for me to be hearing. But I'm curious, does our current data and technology systems support the on-track thinking? And can we use what we already have to do this work in the future? Does it mean that we need to be thinking about further technologies?
I'm how to answer that question. We, Gavin and team and Bay did build in Tableau a dashboard for the EWIs and on track. It has not been maintained without a data team, but I think once we have the folks hired, we're interviewing director tomorrow. We have the infrastructure, I think, to be able to
Okay.
get that back up and running. And it was all modeled, if you remember from the original bar work, off, the methodology that they used and then integrated into our own systems.
Awesome. Awesome. Just because I know that unless we have the systems and the infrastructure to help people find and get that data quickly, it's not going to be implemented. So that is exciting. That's all I've got. Thank you so much for all of your work.
Thank you.
Great job, team.
For that. Okay, we are going to take a quick break. We've been 2.5 hours already in. So we'll come back at 8:35, please, for lots of old business. We're going to juggle the schedule around just a little bit to try to get folks who have been super patiently waiting for the meeting kind of to their items. So we're going to start with personnel next. This is for the consideration and action to approve the personnel election of administrators. So I'm going to turn it to Superintendent Townsend. Would you like to speak to this item?
I sure would. I'm very excited tonight to recommend to the Board of Education the appointment of Ashley Anderson as the new halftime assistant principal at Presumpscot Elementary. So Ashley has been a teacher in Portland Public Schools since 2017 and has been an educator for over 13 years, both in New York City and here in Portland. So she's been a member of our elementary school leadership team, a BIPOC mentor within our teaching staff, a special education mentor and liaison. So we're extremely excited to capitalize on Ashley's many strengths and invite her to be part of the leadership team at Presumpscot Elementary moving forward.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So do I have a motion on this action? Thank you, Board Member Figdor. Is there a second? Second, Board Member Russell-Better. We don't take public comment on personal items. Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Board Member Grant.
Just want to remind everyone here and who might be listening that I'm going to abstain from this vote as I have been on personnel matters. I'm sure Ms. Anderson is lovely, but I won't be voting at this time. So just letting people know.
Thank you for the reminder, Board Member Grant. Any general discussion, not about the individual from the board? All right. Sorry, Board Member, or sorry, Vice Chair Bondo.
I just have a clarification to understand. So that's a half. Just want to get some clarification if I understood well. So he's not going to be a full time. He's going to be half, or he's going to be. I just want to see the.
Yep.
The wording
Principal Taylor, if you want to jump in, we're joined by Presumpscot Principal Angie Taylor, and of course Ashley as well here. But similar to how we have a halftime assistant principal at Longfellow, in that case, the other half of their time's a literacy coach. But at Presumpscot, Ashley has been a special education case manager, and so she'll continue in her other halftime in her special education role and be assistant principal in the other halftime role.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless, of course, you guys want to make it a full-time position. I'm happy to do that as
well. Let's take the vote.
Okay. Let's see here. Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Figdor.
Yes.
Member Opperman.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Abstain.
Member Russell-Better.
Yes.
Member Ellis.
Yes.
Member Hemond.
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes.
Yes.
You got. Oh, hi. You made it after work. We saw each other at 8th grade graduation. Member Santiago.
Yes.
Okay.
Beautiful. So the motion passes with everyone in favor except for Board Member Grant, who abstained, and the students voted with the majority.
And we'd like to take a moment, Ashley, if you'd like to, thank you for being with us this evening, hanging in late night. If you want to just offer any words here on this exciting night.
Thank you, guys. I'm happy I was able to stay awake this late. I don't know how you guys are doing that, but kudos to you. I'm really honored to accept this role. I'm a Portland native, so I grew up here in Portland. I went to Portland schools from grades K to 12. And I spent 12 years in New York between college and launching my teaching career down there. But I always had a feeling I'd come back here to Maine. I'm a proud member of BIPOC and LGBTQ communities. And I really love the diversity that Portland has here. My son goes to school in Portland as well. So, I was really adamant about, oh God, sorry, new kitchen. I got a timer light. It's like at school. So I'm, really honored to work in Portland and serve Portland Public Schools. And I was recommended for an administrative cohort through the district. And so I've learned a lot in those courses, and I'm really excited to put that work into practice. I'm just really excited about the position, and I'm glad it opened up at Presumpscot. I wasn't ready to leave there, and, I love that community. So when you guys, gave us this role, I knew immediately that's something I wanted to do. So I really appreciate everybody's support and efforts in this. And I'm excited to help the community as it continues to grow and change. So thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. We are lucky to have you.
Yep. Thank you. So thank you, Ashley. Yeah. Thank you, Ashley, for being here. Looking forward to working with you. Angie, thank you for being with us. I don't know if you want to say any quick word or just, but excited for you guys both as a leadership team with the rest of the leaders at the Presumpscot community.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to work with Ashley in this capacity.
Right. All right. Get some good sleep. Last day of school.
I was just going to make the quick comment about this. I just wanted to super excited for Presumpscot and for you, Ashley. So congratulations. And then I just wanted to underscore Ashley's comment about her opportunity through the district. So just to connect dots for people, that's through the work of Julia Hazel's shop, which is the BIPOC Leadership Pathways work. So just helping people understand how those resources you're investing are translating into outcomes like this, which is a wonderful thing.
Awesome. Thanks for that context, Amelia. Okay, so we're going to move to the second personnel item now, which is the consideration and action to authorize the superintendent or designee to begin hiring process on June 21st, 2023 through August 1st, 2023 for all budgeted vacancies without seeking prior school board approval to advertise or fill. And so this happens because we aren't in session over in July. So basically it's just giving advance authority. So is there a motion? Or actually, do you want to speak to it first?
No use. I won't say much more, but yeah, just kind of a routine annual resolution to allow us to continue forward in the thick of the hiring season to ensure we open the school year fully staffed. So appreciate that. And we'll bring forward lots of recommendations for hire now that the budget's passed and when we get back in session in August.
Great. So do I have a motion? Thank you, Board Member Opperman. Is there a second? Board Member Bryden. We don't have public comment on any personnel items. Any questions from the board? All right. Any general discussion, not about an individual from the board? No, just double checking for hands everywhere. Then by roll call vote, please indicate whether you're in favor of this personnel item. Superintendent Nolly, will you call the roll?
Yeah. Vice Chair Bondo?
Yes.
Member Bryden?
Yes.
Member Figdor?
Yes.
Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Opperman?
Yes.
Member Russell Better?
Yes.
Member Ellis?
Yes.
Member Hemond?
Yes.
Member Santiago?
Yes.
Chair Lenz?
Yes. So the motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority. All right. So we're done with personnel. So now we're going to pop back up to old business and we're going to start with hockey. Is that correct?
Yep.
Beautiful. So we have the consideration and action to approve the proposal to expand the boys high school hockey co-op. Do we need to speak to that?
Just again, a reminder briefly, advancing this proposal for second read and vote tonight after our workshop at our June 6th meeting to address the low numbers in our existing co-op program. We were unable to field a varsity boys hockey team last winter because of the low numbers and the lack of, a seasoned goalie. So we're seeking board authorization to apply to the MPA for co-op approval to establish another district partner to be able to field a full varsity team as well as JV team. We believe this will, only expand opportunities, the appropriate kind of developmental opportunities for Portland students and athletes, and offer the side benefit of, probably saving 25 to 30% of our costs around hockey program through the cost sharing with our partner district. So.
Beautiful. So is there a motion to approve this proposal to expand boys hockey? Thank you, Board Member Bryden. Is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Russell-Better. Any questions on the motion? Yeah, go ahead, Board Member Opperman.
Not so much a question as a request again, that it would be good to know, along with hockey, what other individual sports are being co-opted, what ones might be co-op because they're heading in that direction. Also, math team, chess team, et cetera, just so that we have, as we move forward in the next coming year, that we know where we're standing and we can support the kids.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman. Any other board questions right now? No? Any public comment? Okay. Any, so I'm going to close public comment. Any board discussion? I would just say that we have received a large amount of parent and family outreach and support of this motion and action, both themselves, but also seeing the benefits for their young people and our community at large. So, okay. So we're ready for you to call the roll.
Exciting. Vice Chair Bondo.
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Figdor.
Yes.
Member Grant.
Yes.
Member Opperman.
Yes.
Member Russell-Better.
Yes.
Member Ellis.
Yes.
Member Hemond.
Yes.
Member Santiago.
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes. So the motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority.
And just want to acknowledge, thank you, Lance Johnson, our athletic director and co-curricular director at Portland High, and Michael Daly, our Deering co-curricular directors, online with us as well. So thank you for shepherding this process and the continued work to try and find an elusive partner to be able to, create this opportunity for our Portland High athletes. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. So now we're going to move to the ESOL resolution. Just as a reminder, this is the consideration and action to approve the ESOL resolution. Is there a motion to approve this resolution? Thank you, Vice Chair Bondo. Second, everybody's got their hands up. Thanks so much. Board Member Opperman seconded. Are there any questions on the motion? Okay, I'm going to move to public comment. Any public comment on the motion? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Any board discussion? And this is where an amendment would be offered, if anyone has one. Board Member Grant?
I don't have an amendment, but I just wanted to let people know after discussing this matter beforehand with the chair, I will abstain from this vote as it directly impacts some educator members.
Beautiful.
Potential members.
Board Member Figdor, do you have a thought? Okay, go ahead.
I am excited to vote for this resolution and really optimistic about kind of this vision for how we think about our multilingual learners and how we reorient to ensuring that all educators in our schools are responsible for ensuring that our multilingual learners are empowered and achieve rigorous grade level curriculum. So I want to thank Malia Nally for her leadership on this and for helping shepherd it forward. And I'm really excited about where this will take us in the future.
Thank you, Board Member Figdor. Vice Chair Bondo?
Yes, thank you. I just want to be short because this is a signature of Malia, and I just want to say thank you. That's going to be the last signature. And I really appreciate it, to sponsor with my colleagues, Victor and Hopperman, because this is something really going to improve the strategy learning in the mainstream classroom and moving teachers, to being leading different structure with all different languages in the classroom. So it's going to be really a game changer for our English learner. Thank you. Yeah. And
Thank you, Vice Chair Bondo. Oh, Board Member Upperman?
Thank you, Chair. I am going to vote for this resolution. I think it's an incredible positive move. I do have the reservation that as it goes forward, that the understanding that current teachers are supported in the way that they can, at whatever time they can, access the ESOL credentialing. But with patients, knowing that their incredible hard work in all areas and what they already do with all students is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Upperman. Did you want to?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I appreciate, everybody's comments, and I think I might have said this in the last meeting, but I do just want to be clear that what this will enable is it then charges the team with figuring out a plan, which absolutely needs to be grounded in practical reality, and is cognizant of, that expectation with support and really understanding where people are at. I've talked to educators that are super excited, and I've talked to people that are pretty trepidatious about how this will get done with what time. But when I think about our work, there's different levers you can pull at different levels. And so for you as a board, or for us at the system level, we can use things like policy and resolution to pave the way for work to happen. But then the real work is sitting down collaboratively with educators to figure out, first, do we all understand sort of the why behind this in terms of where we're at as a district and the students in front of us, and how this ultimately is intended to empower educators. But getting from here to there, I can hear many teachers I've talked to saying, okay, that's nice sitting in your seat, but then what about me? And I'm the one taking the classes and all that. So I just want to be super clear that that's very much understood. And I'm excited about the fact that we have resources this year to find people who can really plan this out with teachers' actual experience in mind, to make sure it's successful and not something that just feels like the board decided to do this and now it's a burden. It's ultimately going to be successful if it's felt as a value proposition for our teachers in particular, because then the spirit with which it gets done will yield what it's intended to do for our students. So I appreciate that comment, and very much feel like the orientation of the team is to come at it from that perspective.
Thank you for that additional context. And I just think that this is like such a value add to our district, especially as we continue to be in such a competitive market for hiring, like knowing that this is an option for potentially new employees. I think that that's going to bring us some really great people. So I intend to support this as well. Any other board discussion? All right, let's roll call it.
Great. Vice Chair Bondo?
Yes.
Member Bryden?
Yes.
Member Figdor?
Yes.
I know Grant is abstaining. Member Opperman?
Yes.
Member Russell-Better?
Yes.
Member Ellis?
Yes.
Member Hemond?
Yes.
Member Santiago?
Yes.
Chair Lentz?
Yes. So the motion passes with Board Member Grant abstaining, but all others voting in favor. The students voted with the majority.
And I just one final comment. I'm grateful to the board. I also just wanted to acknowledge Jane Armstrong, was here on the call in case people had questions. She's a mastermind behind so many things that we do. Her depth of expertise is incredible. And so she's really helped illuminate for all of us, the need we have for everybody to deeply have this expertise in our system, including, at the district level. So just wanted to honor and acknowledge her for the work she's done to frame this up for everyone.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, so now I just want to double check which vote we're going to next.
Why don't we, go back to order B around the policy BEDH and then calendar and we don't have any other staff or anybody waiting.
Just wanted to double check before I called the next one up. So the next one that we have is the consideration and action to approve the proposed changes to policy BEDH, which is public participation in board meetings. I think that there might be some amendments to this, but let's bring the motion forward and then we can propose amendments. So is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Board Member Opperman. Is there a second? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you, Board Member Bryden. So any questions on the motion? Okay, I'm going to open public comment. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. So is there any board discussion? Got Board Member Grant?
Thank you, Chair. Gonna go right up to the line here. My personal separation of church and state when it comes to my day job and this policy. Ultimately, I'm going to support. I'm not going to offer an amendment, but I do want to offer a couple of comments that I hope, especially you, Chair, will take to heart, because ultimately, some of these decisions are solely in your hands about public participation. This language is common throughout Maine. It's obviously written by our attorneys and attorneys for most of the school districts in Maine. And I think it's here to achieve sort of a maximalist allowable position for boards and staff. What I would like to offer to everyone here, though, is that I have seen this weaponized in fairly dangerous ways, I think, for boards as a tool to suppress uncomfortable topics about their school districts. So my suggestion, I don't want to just be here as one to gripe about something. I want to offer a suggestion that first I'll acknowledge that we're trying to walk a fine line here, I think, between valuable information about the running of the schools and what people value about the schools, as opposed in opposite to the privacy considerations of our staff. I fully understand that and respect that, and I just think we need to be very thoughtful about where that line is drawn. So, and I think, sorry if I'm just riffing here a little bit, but I just want to get a couple points out that there is also a difference that I have seen exploited elsewhere between every other member of the staff of the district and the superintendent specifically. So Dr. Scallon and Malia and Aaron may want to plug their ears for a moment, but they do sit differently than every other member of the staff of the school district because they are the sole employee that are reportable directly to the board. And I find it fairly unsatisfying in the other places I've seen this policy invoked to state that there are channels for members of the public to voice their concerns about their superintendent, because that ultimately is supposed to be directed to the superintendent when it's about a different staff person. So that brings me to my suggestion that I think as a chair, it would be advisable for you and for all of us to be able to hear some comment about our superintendent if that's what the public has on their minds. I think we need to know that. I think it's appropriate to bring that type of comment to the board within some boundaries, right, around issues that are should be private in terms of a personnel file or an official action or something that's happening behind the scenes. But just a general statement about personnel with respect to the superintendent, I think you should grant some leeway when it comes to that specific type of comment. Again, I speak from experience here where I have seen boards really try to suppress the public when it comes to opinions about the running of a school district through the personnel of the superintendent. So again, I want to respect the work that's been done on this. I know this is a difficult topic and others have put more elbow grease into it than I have. So I'm going to respect that work and vote for this policy. But I just hope that you as chair will show a little bit of leeway when it comes to that kind of comment from the public. So I'll stop there. And again, I will support the policy as written. But
Any other discussion? Yeah, Board Member Opperman.
I appreciate your comments, Member Grant. What I would say, I think the privacy is a key thing with this particular policy, but also the lack of violent language towards people. And I think the violence in words and is as impactful as violence in deeds. So I think that's a critical thing to think about in all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman.
No, I know.
Any other discussion? I also, Board Member Grant, just, I think that there are, I think speaking in a public forum that is being live streamed and recorded is different than sending an email or requesting a conversation or, so I think that there are, I understand your concerns and I just think that there might be ways to encourage people to reach out to us in a different way that is in public forum, because it does feel like, yes, I want to hear what people have to say, and putting that out in a public forum, especially just coming off of, all of the racism that we have seen in the last few years about leaders of color, and giving people a venue for that without guardrails and boundaries doesn't feel okay. So I think I'm thinking about the complexity of this and just anticipating how to navigate it. But I think the language that stands within the document now feels okay. And then just informing my own kind of policy.
If I can just quickly respond, and also responding to Member Opperman, I completely agree about the rules around decorum and proper language, and there are obvious boundaries that should not be crossed by anybody. I just want to tell you that I've seen in multiple districts where this is used as a reason to avoid uncomfortable conversations. And I don't want to see that done here, because there are things we do need to hear about, even if they're uncomfortable, within the bounds of what's proper and what's delivered in an appropriate way. That's all. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay. Thank you. I think we lean into some uncomfort on this board. So I trust that we got that. Board Member Figdor.
I mean, if we wanted to address Board Member Grant's concern, we could just insert a clause that said, and with respect to the superintendent, to bring those concerns to the board chair. I mean, it's just a simple fix.
Yeah. I would support that amendment. Yeah. Yeah. We're in the amendment section of I would support that.
And specifically, Emily, where, just for clarity, and
I literally just closed it right before I said that. I think in that section, let me open it up again.
In the C in the enumerated list,
I think
there's two places where personnel is mentioned, kind of the paragraph below the two ways of
I think
participating.
Under C, you could say any concerns about personnel matters and or student matters should be directed to the superintendent or appropriate administrator outside board meetings, comma, and in the case of concerns about the superintendent, to the board chair, comma, so that they can be addressed. So it's simply specifying that concerns about the superintendent should be brought to the board chair
outside of meetings. Yeah,
and we could make it the board. I don't have a strong preference, but just to.
Yeah, I think that would make me more comfortable. And if that's being offered, I'll second it and support it.
And maybe the board is better than the board chair, actually, because the board, people might feel more comfortable going to an individual member who they know or have a relationship with rather than necessarily the chair. So maybe we just specify the board.
Yep, that works. Any thoughts or comments over here? Just agreement. Okay. Vice Chair Bondo? Yeah. Okay. So we're just making the changes in
this case, I think it could just be a friendly amendment. Yeah. And then we don't have to go through the entire process again.
Oh, yes. That's what we're very friendly. We both lean into uncomfortable things and we're friendly. So that is going to be endpoint C though, correct? Okay, beautiful. So with that discussion, then I think that we can move forward with that friendly amendment into the roll call vote, please.
Great. Vice Chair Bondo,
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Figdor,
Yes.
Member Grant,
Yes.
Member Opperman,
Yes.
Member Russell Better,
Yes.
Member Ellis,
Yes.
Member Heeman,
Yes.
and Member Santiago.
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes, so the motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority. Thank you all for that great work and quick work as well. So now we're going to move into consideration and action to approve an amendment to the 2023-2024 school calendar. Is there a motion for this action? Thank you, Board Member Bryden. Is there a second? Board Member Figdor, just to mix it up. Sorry, I'm getting a little punchy. Any questions on the motion? Okay, I'm going to open public comment. Okay, I see, let me just double check. Yep, I see none. Public comment. We're going to close public comment. Any board discussion? Yes.
I just want to remind us all that this is in order to have additional safety training for the staff and faculty.
Yes, and ADP training. Beautiful. Thank you for that context. Missed that step. Okay, so any other discussion? Nope. Let's roll call.
Let's do it. All right. Vice Chair Bondo,
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Figdor,
Yes.
Member Grant,
Yes.
Member Opperman,
Yes.
Member Russell Better,
Yes.
Member Ellis,
Yes.
Member Heeman,
Yes.
Member Santiago,
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes, so the motion passes unanimously with students voting with the majority. Great. And we've got one last item for action, which is the consideration and action to authorize the fiscal 23 budget transfer. Do you want to speak to the context?
Yeah,
of this
just
one?
a reminder that, this is a procedure that we discussed in the May Finance Committee meeting to assist in our year-end closeout. Board authorization is required when we're making budget transfers between the 11 defined state categories in excess of $50,000. None of the transfers exceed the 5% cap at the state level. So this is to move it, as outlined in the memo, and for kind of the reasons outlined there. So just to assist in our year-end closeout accounting procedures.
Wonderful. So with that, is there a motion to authorize this budget transfer? Board Member Russell Better, is there a second? Board Member Figdor, any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, I'm going to move to public comment. Okay, seeing no public comment, I'm going to close public comment. Any board discussion?
Just to, I should have been under questions, but clarification that these are things that have been identified now, and that there may be other things that may come up that we may have to discuss in August, but this is as of today.
Correct. Thank you, Board Member Opperman. Any other discussion? Just make sure Chair Bondo, no. So roll call vote, please.
Yep. Vice Chair Bondo,
Yes.
Member Bryden.
Yes.
Member Figdor,
Yes.
Member Grant,
Yes.
Member Opperman,
Yes.
Member Russell Better,
Yes.
Member Ellis,
Yes.
Member Heeman,
Yes.
Member Santiago,
Yes.
Chair Lentz.
Yes, so the motion passes unanimously with the students voting with the majority. So just as a reminder, we do not meet in July. Our next board meeting is going to be August 1st. And with that, I'm going to move us to adjournment, but then we have a workshop afterwards. So all those in favor, how do I adjourn the meeting? Oh gosh, I almost made it, y'all. Yeah, is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Board Member Bryden, is there a second? Bryden? Board Member Opperman, all those in favor? Great. So we're going to adjourn at 9:10 p.m. Thank you all.